Hey, isn't that our village's only student from a prestigious university? What? Still haven't found a job. What's the use of being a college graduate? Didn't he just come back home to live off his parents? My mom used to force me to learn from him every day. Looking at him now, good thing I wasn't born with that bookish fate. Laughter erupted in front of the small shop. Carrying a bag of salt, I walked past them. I didn't talk back. Not because I didn't want to. The time simply hadn't come yet. 3 years ago, I graduated from university. Just as I was preparing to stay in the city and look for work, a system called the Eye of Yama suddenly appeared. It gave me only one requirement. Within 3 years, I was not allowed to take even half a step out of Qingshan village. If I failed, the system would disappear forever. So I came back, and that stay lasted 3 full years. The villagers called me a useless good-for-nothing. My mother could no longer hold her head up. Wherever my father went, he smiled apologetically on my behalf, and I could only endure it. Tonight, at midnight, the 3-year period would end. Thinking of this, I clenched my collar and strode home. As soon as I entered the yard, I saw my mother, Jean Guélan, drying corn. Mom. She looked up at me. Her gaze was complicated. Disappointment, exhaustion, and a trace of heartache she couldn't hide no matter how hard she tried. But she said nothing and lowered her head to continue working. My nose stung. I wanted to tell her to wait just a few more hours. Just a few hours. Then her son would no longer have to be a useless good-for-nothing. But when the words reached my lips, I swallowed them back down. Anything I said now would only sound like an excuse. You're back. My father, Suangwa, was squatting by the vegetable garden, washing vegetables. There were only a few cucumbers and a handful of water spinach in the basin. He rubbed his hands and smiled at me. You came back pretty early today. Why didn't you walk around outside a little longer? Dad, did someone gossip about you again? I didn't answer. He stood up and patted my shoulder. Listen to your dad. Don't take it to heart. If you can't find a job, then take your time. As long as your mom and I still have breath in us, this family won't lack a meal for you. I abruptly lowered my head. My eyes reddened at once. All these years, the entire village had trampled on me. Only my father had always stood in front of me. He had never asked why I didn't go out to work, nor had he ever scolded me even once. Dad, just wait a little longer. I gritted my teeth and spoke. What? Nothing. I turned and went back into the house. If I kept talking, I was afraid I would burst into tears right there. I didn't eat dinner. I lay on that wooden bed that creaked wildly whenever I turned over, staring fixedly out the window. Time passed bit by bit. Finally, midnight arrived. I suddenly sat up. It was here. A chill pierced my eyes without warning. It was as if someone had taken 2 icy needles and forcibly stabbed them into my pupils. Ah! I fell off the bed, both hands digging hard into the floor. Pain. It hurt too much. I clenched my teeth, forcing myself not to cry out a second time. I couldn't draw my parents over. I didn't know how long had passed before that intense pain finally receded. Drenched in sweat, I supported myself on the edge of the bed and stood up. System. No response. Eye of Yama. Still nothing. I hurriedly looked around. The broken table. The old wardrobe. The cracked wall. Nothing had changed. No panel. No prompt. And certainly no legendary beginner's gift package. My legs went weak. Thud. I dropped to my knees, my mind blank. 3 years. I endured for 3 whole years. And in the end, it was all a hallucination. I slammed my fist onto the ground, my knuckles splitting open instantly. All the ridicule over the years, my mother's disappointed gaze, my father's bent back, everything exploded in my mind. Why? I had gambled 3 years of my youth, and in the end all I got was a joke? Just as I was on the verge of collapse, an angry roar suddenly came from outside the yard. Suangwa, get out here. Why didn't you sign the papers I told you to sign today? I abruptly raised my head. Something had happened. I rushed out of the room. 3 people stood outside the yard. The one leading them was Zhao Ping, the village chief of Qingshan village. Behind him were 2 young men from the Zhao family. One of them had a cigarette in his mouth and was staring impatiently at my father. My father smiled apologetically, his waist bent low. Village chief. Those 2 mu of land were left to me by my father. They aren't village land. It really isn't appropriate for you to take it to build a house. Before Zhao Ping could speak, his nephew Zhao Wenyan spat out a mouthful of smoke. What's inappropriate about it? My Uncle Ping's homestead borders that plot of yours. That's your problem. Sign it, put your fingerprint on it, and we'll give you 5,000 yuan in compensation. Don't fail to appreciate our kindness." My father's expression changed. 5,000 yuan to buy 2 mu of land. How is that any different from outright robbery? What did you say? Zhao Wenyan stepped forward and raised his hand to shove him. I directly blocked him in front of my father. "Put your hand down." When Zhao Wenyan saw me, he immediately laughed. "Yo, the college graduate came out too." "What? After leeching off your parents for 3 years, you finally leashed yourself some courage. Come on, tell us uncles what they taught you at university. Did they specialize in teaching people how to become useless trash?" Zhao Ping and the others laughed together. I ignored them, because the instant I looked at my father, a line of blood-red information suddenly appeared above his head. Name: Suonghua. Remaining lifespan: 26 years. Cause of death: acute myocardial infarction at 2 o'clock in the morning. My breathing stopped. Immediately after, I looked at Zhao Wenyan. Name: Zhao Wenyan. Remaining lifespan: 44 years. Cause of death: sudden massive cerebral hemorrhage at 9 o'clock in the morning. I froze where I stood. Zhao Wenyan laughed even louder. "Uncle, did you see that? This bookworm really studied himself stupid." I still ignored him. I stared fixedly at Zhao Ping. The next second, new information appeared. Name: Zhao Ping. Remaining lifespan: 13 hours. Cause of death: at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. While on his way to town to handle the land transfer procedures after hiring someone to forge Suonghua's signature, he will encounter a car accident and die on the spot. I stared at those lines, my heartbeat growing faster and faster. It wasn't a hallucination. The system had truly activated. I could see other people's time of death. I could even see the cause of death. This was the Eye of Yama. 3 years. I had won the gamble. "Idiot, what are you smiling about?" Zhao Wenyan frowned and reached out to shove me again. I grabbed his wrist. "Don't touch me. You're courting death?" Just as he was about to make a move, I had already taken out my phone and pressed 3 numbers. 110. Zhao Wenyan's movements froze. I looked at him coldly. Trespassing in a private residence, forcing a transaction, and preparing to assault someone. "Come on, continue. If you dare touch my dad even once, I'll call the police immediately." Zhao Ping's expression darkened. "Shoutian, we're all from the same village. There's no need to blow things up, right? Now you remember we're from the same village?" I stood in front of my father and stared at him. "When you were robbing my family's land, why didn't you say that?" Su Tian. Zhao Ping completely tore off his mask. "You really think because you studied for a few years, you can act like somebody in front of me? In Qingshan village, no one can stop me from doing what I want." I smiled. For a man with only 13 hours left to live, he sure talked big. "Dad, go inside. There's nothing to discuss with a man who's about to die." The yard instantly fell silent. Zhao Ping's face turned black. "You dare curse me? I'm only reminding you." I raised my hand and pointed toward the gate. "Take care. I won't see you out." "Good." Zhao Ping trembled with rage. "Su Tian, you've got guts. I'd like to see how long you can keep acting tough." He turned and left. But Zhao Wenyan was unwilling to let it go. He turned back and made an insulting gesture at me. "College boy, don't kneel and beg us tomorrow." I smiled. "Don't worry. The one kneeling and crying tomorrow won't be me." They left while cursing and grumbling. My father stood behind me, silent for a long time. After a while, he grabbed my arm. "Shoutian, today you." "Dad, I'm not crazy." "Then why did you say Zhao Ping was going to die?" I looked at the worry in his eyes and didn't answer directly. The Eye of Yama was too bizarre. Once word got out, I might immediately become someone's target. I first had to verify whether it was truly accurate. "You'll know tomorrow. Also, don't get emotional tonight, and don't drink alcohol." My father froze. Why would I drink for no reason? Just listen to me. I turned and went back into the house, unable to sleep the entire night. The next morning, shortly after 10 o'clock, suddenly, chaos broke out outside. Something happened. The village chief crashed. He died on the spot. My eyes snapped open. It had happened. I rushed out of the yard. The area beneath the big banyan tree was already surrounded by people. Is it true? How could it be fake? The village chief was going to town to handle land procedures when he crashed into a big truck halfway there. I heard the front of the car was flattened. There was no way to save him. Wasn't Zhao Wenyan in the car too? He got out at the last minute to buy water and escape. Standing outside the crowd, I slowly clenched my fists. The time, the place, the cause of death. All correct. The Eye of Yama had not lied to me. From this moment on, my life had completely changed. Son, my father pushed through the crowd and rushed to me in a panic. His face was frighteningly pale. Yesterday you said he was a dying man. Dad, I grabbed and steadied him. Let's talk at home. Did you really calculate this? Home first. My father wanted to keep asking, but I directly pulled him back. People around us had already begun looking over. This matter couldn't be discussed outside. But as soon as I entered the yard, I saw a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes standing in front of my mother. My mother was holding an old stool, wiping it over and over. Big brother, have a seat. The man glanced at the stool, and the disgust in his eyes wasn't hidden at all. No need. I stopped. I had never seen this man before, but my mother called him Big Brother. That meant he was my maternal uncle whom I had never met, Zhang Henian. Zhang Henian looked over my family's 2 dilapidated tile-roofed rooms and spoke coldly. If you hadn't called me dozens of times begging me, I would never have come to a place like this. My mother lowered her head. Big brother, I truly had no other choice. I know I was ignorant back then and didn't listen to the family. You can say whatever you want about me, but Xiaodian is still young. Give him a chance and let him work at your company. My chest tightened as I listened. So these past few days, my mother had been begging people behind my back. Zhang Henian sneered. Back then, Mom and Dad advised you not to marry this poor brat, but you refused to listen. Now that your life has turned out like this, who can you blame? My father's expression looked ugly, but he didn't refute him. My mother lowered her head even more. Zhang Henian pointed at me. Your son did get into a good university, but unfortunately, he's still a useless thing. 3 years after graduation, hiding at home every day and leeching off his parents. It's only because you came begging me. Otherwise, trash like this wouldn't even be able to step through the doors of my company. My mother quickly waved at me. Xiaodian, hurry over and thank your uncle. Once you go to the company, work hard. Do whatever he tells you to do. Don't throw a temper. I didn't move. Zhang Henian looked at me. What? Do you want me to personally invite you? Mom, I'm not going. What did you say? I've already found a way out. My mother was so anxious her eyes turned red. You've stayed at home for 3 years. Where did you find a way out? If I say I have one, then I have one. The Eye of Yama had already activated. There was no way I would lower my head and serve like an ox or horse for someone else. And even less would I work under someone who humiliated my parents. Zhang Henian let out a mocking laugh. It's normal for a young person to have a bit of self-respect. But someone like you, besides that laughable self-respect, what else do you have left? Do you believe that as long as I open my mouth, graduates from prestigious universities wanting to enter my company could fill several streets? This opportunity is something you may not encounter again in your entire life. I looked straight at him. Then leave the opportunity to someone else. Our family is poor. But we're not so poor that we need to kneel and beg for your charity. Zhang Henian's face instantly darkened. My mother hurriedly grabbed me. Xiaodian, don't talk nonsense. Apologize quickly. Mom, I'm not the one who should apologize. I shook off her hand and pointed toward the gate. Mr. Zhang, please leave. Good. Very good. Zhang Henian stared coldly at me. I'd like to see what kind of life you can live once you leave this family. After saying this, he turned to go. But the instant he turned around, I saw the information above his head. Name, Zhang Henian. Remaining lifespan, 10 hours. Cause of death, acute myocardial infarction caused by excessive drinking at 8 o'clock tonight. My gaze sharpened. He would die tonight. And the cause of death was a heart attack. I immediately spoke. Wait. Zhang Henian stopped and looked back at me, regretting it. No. I stared at him and said, word by word. It would be best if you didn't attend tonight's drinking banquet. If you absolutely must go, drink less, and carry a bottle of Suxiao Jushin pills. Believe it or not, that's up to you. Zhang Henian's face turned livid on the spot. You dare curse me? My mother panicked too. Xiaodian, are you insane? Her shout was heavy. After shouting, she herself froze first. I saw the grievance and disappointment in her eyes, and my heart ached sharply. But I couldn't explain. At least not now. Zhang Henian, however, was completely enraged. He raised his hand and pointed at me. So furious he nearly started cursing, but in the end he forcibly held himself back. Guilin, you really gave birth to a fine son. Had I known this would happen, I never should have come today. My mother hurried after him. Big brother, Xiaodian didn't mean it that way. Give him another chance. Shut up. Zhang Henian's shout froze her in place. Don't call me big brother. You were never my biological sister to begin with. You were merely the adopted daughter mom and dad picked up back then. Don't even think about taking a single cent of the family property. From now on, even if you kneel and beg me, I won't care about any of you again. My mother's face turned deathly pale. Her outstretched hand froze in midair. Big brother. I said, don't call me that. Zhang Henian swept his cold gaze over our family. Pitiful people always have hateful traits. Kid, remember what you said today. He strode out of the yard. My mother stood where she was, tears falling one by one. My father walked over and supported her, but she seemed to suddenly lose all strength and squatted on the ground, crying. I didn't chase after Zhang Henian. I had already given the warning. Whether he listened or not was his fate. I walked to my mother's side and slowly crouched down. Mom, I'm sorry. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with pain. Su Tian, what exactly are you trying to do? I wiped away the tears on her face. I want you and Dad to never have to beg anyone again. I want everyone who looked down on us today to regret it. Give me a little time. I stood up and looked outside the yard. The Eye of Yama had already been verified. Next, it was time for me to leave Qingshan village. As for whether Zhang Henian could survive tonight, that would depend on whether he believed me. Later, my father told me that when he rushed back home, he happened to see a black Mercedes driving away. The moment the car door closed, he only glimpsed a familiar side profile. Who was that person? He stood by the road thinking for a long time, but couldn't recognize him. That was normal too. Back when my parents got married, the Zhang family opposed it no matter what. My maternal grandfather and grandmother didn't even attend the wedding, so my father had very little impression of this brother-in-law to begin with. When he reached the doorway, his footsteps suddenly stopped. My mother sat on the steps, eyes vacant, her face covered in tears. Guilin. My father rushed over and crouched down. What's wrong? Who bullied you? The moment my mother heard his voice, she completely broke down. Anghua, I can't hold on anymore. Don't say that. My father grabbed her hand, so anxious his voice trembled. What exactly happened? Tell me. My heart hurts. My mother cried while pounding her chest. All these years, I've really been suffering too much. I had already reached the door. Listening to her suppressed sobs, my hand gripped the doorframe tightly. I truly wanted to turn around immediately and tell them everything about the Eye of Yama. Tell them I was no longer the useless trash anyone could trample on. Tell them I could see people's life and death, could change fate, could lead this family to turn everything around. But I couldn't. Once the system was exposed, who knew what it might attract? Some secrets weren't kept because I didn't trust my family. It was because the fewer people who knew, the safer they would be. I closed my eyes and hardened my heart, pushing the door open and entering the room. Dad, Mom, give me a little more time. I will never let you down. Zhao Ping was already dead. With the temperament of the Zhao family, they would definitely pin this debt on me. Good. I was waiting for them to come. As long as I once again publicly determined someone's life and death, and then let the prophecy come true, all of Qingshan village would know that I, Su Tian, wasn't talking nonsense. Prestige, mystery, and a power strong enough to make everyone fear me. This was the first step to turning my life around. As for my maternal uncle, Zhang Henian, who had just left, he still didn't know at this moment that he had already walked once before the gates of hell. Only later did I learn that on the road back to Linchuan City, his expression had remained very ugly. He felt that he had kindly visited us, only to be humiliated by our whole family, especially by me. A rural nephew he looked down on had actually dared to remind him to his face. During tonight's social banquet, it's best to bring a bottle of Suxiao Jushin pills. Believe it or not, that's up to you. When the car passed a pharmacy, he stepped on the brake. My words rang again in his mind. He cursed under his breath, as if trying to use anger to suppress the unease in his heart. But his hand still drove the car to the entrance of the pharmacy. Over the past few years, in order to climb upward, he had attended social banquets every day and drank at every meal. Some time ago, he had chest tightness, and the doctor had also told him to pay attention to his health. He sat in the car for half a minute, put out his cigarette, and pushed the door open to get out. I don't believe that brat's nonsense. I'm just preparing for the unexpected. Right? Preparing for the unexpected. A dozen or so minutes later, he walked out of the pharmacy with a bottle of Su Xiaojushin pills. His mouth said he didn't believe it, but the medicine was tucked close inside his pocket. That night, he sat down in a luxurious private room. The table was filled with wine and dishes. 7 or 8 company executives in suits and leather shoes toasted him one after another. President Zhang, come, let me toast you. Good. Zhang Henian stood up with his glass. But the next second, the smile on his face froze. The wine glass slipped from his hand. Crack. The glass smashed onto the table, wine splashing everywhere. He clutched his chest tightly, his mouth opening wide, but he couldn't draw in even a single breath. Then his entire body fell straight down. President Zhang. Old Zhang, call an ambulance. The private room instantly descended into chaos. Someone discovered the bottle of medicine that had fallen from his pocket, hurriedly picked it up, and tremblingly stuffed the pills into his mouth. Only after quite a while did he manage to breathe again. After regaining consciousness, the first thing he said wasn't to call for a doctor. Instead, he grabbed the hand of the person beside him tightly. He was right. Who? My nephew. Zhang Henian's face was frighteningly pale. He really was right. I didn't know about this at the time, because Zhao Ping's ashes had already returned to the village. His wife, Niu Zuohua, held a square wooden box in her arms, crying so hard she could barely stand. Zhao Wenyan followed beside her, his face deathly pale. The area beneath the big banyan tree at the village entrance was packed with people. When he left, he was over 100 jin. Now he came back as just this little bit. What a sin. Zhao Ping was domineering in ordinary times, but now that he's suddenly gone, what will his wife and children do? When my father heard the news, he also sighed. They say evil gets its due, but dying in his dozens really is tragic. I didn't reply. He didn't know why Zhao Ping had gone to town. If he knew Zhao Ping had gone to cause trouble for me, he probably wouldn't be sighing. He would be so furious he would curse on the spot. 3 days later, the Zhao family held a funeral banquet. As soon as the swana sounded, the whole village came. I went too. I had just sat down among the crowd when I heard a scream. It's him. I raised my head. Zhao Wenyan, dressed in mourning clothes, was staring fixedly at me. The resentment in his eyes couldn't be hidden at all. The next second, he turned and ran to Niu Zuohua's side, whispering a few words beside her ear. Niu Zuohua abruptly raised her head. When she saw me, her entire face twisted. Grab him. At her command, more than 30 Zhao family men immediately surrounded me. Tables and chairs were knocked askew. The surrounding people retreated one after another. My father was the first to stand up, blocking himself in front of me. His legs were trembling, but he didn't retreat even one step. Son, don't speak. Dad will handle this. My mother grabbed my arm from behind. Xiaodian, hurry and go. There are many Zhao family members. They really dare to hit hard. I didn't move. Afraid? This was exactly the moment I had been waiting for. With her hair disheveled, Niu Zuohua rushed over, spewing a string of vicious curses, wishing she could tear me apart on the spot. It was you. You cursed my man to death. Pay me back my man's life. Several villagers quickly stopped her. Suehua, Zhao Ping's accident happened outside. What does it have to do with Xiaodian? That's right. Don't act rashly. Get lost. Niu Zuohua shoved them away and continued charging toward me. My father stepped forward. Everything has to be reasonable. Reason my ass. Zhao Wenyan rushed up and shoved my father aside. Today, it doesn't matter who comes. This kid must be beaten. 2 Zhao family men immediately held my father down. Let go of me. My father struggled desperately, his face turning red. If you've got guts, come at me. Don't touch my son. Move again, and I'll deal with you too. Zhao Wenyan pointed at my father, his face ferocious. At the same time, 3 sturdy Zhao family women surrounded my mother and tightly pinned her arms. Help! You people are trying to kill someone. My mother cried anxiously. Someone among the crowd couldn't stand it anymore. But just as they were about to speak, the Zhao family glared fiercely at them and forced them back. This was Qingshan village. Normally, everyone laughed and chatted together. But when it truly came time to fight, whichever family had more men spoke with more force. The Zhao family thought they had us completely under their control. Unfortunately, They were wrong. I suddenly stood up. Niu Tsuehua had already rushed in front of me. I raised my hand. A cold light flashed. A firewood chopping knife lay horizontally between us. Ah! Niu Tsuehua screamed and retreated several steps, almost falling to the ground. The entire courtyard instantly fell silent. I gripped the chopping knife tightly, the blade sweeping over the faces of the Zhao family one by one. Come, whoever isn't afraid to die, come right up. The people who had been so aggressive just now all stopped. My family had few people. That was why they dared bully us. But when I had a knife in my hand, they suddenly remembered. Having more people didn't mean having more lives. Zhao Wenyan's face alternated between green and white. What are you afraid of? He roared at the top of his lungs. There are so many of us. Can we really be frightened by him alone? Grab weapons. The Zhao family immediately moved. Benches, wooden sticks, bamboo poles. Anything they could grab was seized into their hands. I swept my gaze over them, then directly threw the chopping knife onto the ground. Clang. Zhao Wenyan froze for a moment, then smiled viciously. Now you know fear? Too late. Who said I was afraid? I bent down and grabbed the cloth bundle beside my feet, raising it high with both hands. Let me see who dares move. The white cloth slipped down. When the object inside was revealed, everyone froze. What I was holding in my hands was the statue of General Wu Dao that Qingshan village had worshipped for generations. Come on. I stared at Zhao Wenyan. Take one more step forward, and I'll smash it. If anything really happens to the deity statue today, everyone present will be witness. When the time comes, let's see who forced me to smash it. The Zhao family's faces all changed. No one dared step forward anymore. Even the two men holding my father subconsciously loosened their hands. Stop! An elderly shout came from behind the crowd. All of you stop! Old Master Gao walked out with a cane. He was already 102 years old, the most senior person in the entire village by generation. When Zhao Ping was alive, even he had to obediently call him Old Master when he saw him. As soon as Old Master Gao spoke, over a dozen Gao family men immediately rushed out and stood between me and the Zhao family. Zhao Wenyan still wanted to shout. The Gao family men glared at him in unison. He immediately shut his mouth. The Gao family wasn't as numerous as the Zhao family, but they were famous for being ruthless in fights. The Zhao family didn't dare truly touch them either. Old Master Gao came before me and stared at the deity statue in my hands. You're the boy from Old Su's family, right? That's me. Do you know what you're holding? General Wu Dao. You know, and you still dare mess around. Old Master Gao struck the ground heavily with his cane. This is the guardian deity Qingshan village has worshipped for generations. If something truly goes wrong, can you bear the responsibility? Hurry and put it down. I smiled. This was exactly the sentence I had been waiting for. Lord Wu Dao is a great general under Emperor Dongwu. He guards the gates of the 5 paths, governs the affairs of the underworld, determines mortal lifespans, and seizes departed souls. Old Master Gao, am I right? His eyes changed. Clearly, he hadn't expected that I truly understood. Since you understand, you have even less reason to offend him. If you anger Lord Wu Dao, then if anything happens in the village from now on, it will all be blamed on you. The moment these words fell, everyone's gaze pressed down on me. Put down the deity statue? The Gao family would definitely protect the deity statue first and would no longer care about my family. Keep holding it up? Then I would become the sinner who had offended the deity. But I had never intended to choose either. Holding the deity statue, I looked straight at Old Master Gao. What if I said that I am here in the mortal world under Lord Wu Dao's command? The crowd first went quiet. Then it completely exploded. Has he gone mad? Doing work for Lord Wu Dao? He really knows how to brag. Zhao Wenyan even cursed loudly on the spot, desperately using humiliation toward me to give himself courage. Su Tian, stop pretending to be mysterious here. You really think that by holding a deity statue, you can trick everyone? Old Master Gao was so angry he raised his cane too. Nonsense. Do you know the consequences of impersonating a divine envoy? I didn't explain, because explanations were the most useless thing. I only needed a dead person. No, to be precise, I needed someone who was about to die. The Eye of Yama had long since shown me clearly the lifespans of everyone at the scene. My gaze swept across the Zhao family members before finally locking onto a middle-aged man. Zhao Dabiao. I suddenly shouted his name. Zhao Dabiao was still gripping a bench. After being called out by me, he visibly trembled. Why are you calling me? I stared at him and spoke word by word. Hurry home and prepare burial clothes and a coffin. The underworld officers have already come to your door. Today, they will take someone from your family. The whole scene instantly fell silent. Zhao Dabiao first froze, then flew into a rage. You dare curse my family? He picked up the bench and was about to rush over. But just then, a crying shout came from the distance. Dabiao, hurry and save our son. Everyone turned their heads in unison. A disheveled woman, holding a child in her arms, staggered into the courtyard. The child's eyes were tightly shut. His face was bluish-purple. His body had already begun convulsing. The bench in Zhao Dabiao's hand crashed to the ground with a bang. Son, he rushed over like a madman. What happened? He was fine just now. The woman cried so hard she could barely catch her breath. After he finished eating at the banquet, I brought some more dishes home. He had only eaten a few bites when he started vomiting. After vomiting, he couldn't breathe. Hurry and save him. Zhao Dabiao took the child and completely panicked. Son, open your eyes. Look at Dad. Don't scare me. The child gave no response. His face instead grew more and more purple. The courtyard instantly fell into chaos. Hurry and call emergency services. Isn't it too late? Su Tian had just said it. And then the child got into trouble. Zhao Ping too. Could he really have been sent by Lord Wu Dao? Could it really be that evil? The way everyone looked at me changed. If Zhao Ping was a coincidence, then what about this child before them? I had only just said the underworld officers were going to Zhao Dabiao's family to take someone, and the person was carried over. Could this still be a coincidence? Old Master Gao gripped his cane, his lips trembling slightly. Zhao Wenyin stopped shouting too. He looked at me, his face as white as paper, subconsciously shrinking behind the crowd. Zhao Dabiao suddenly raised his head. He looked at the child in his arms, then at the statue of General Wu Dao in my hands. The next second, carrying the child, he rushed before me. Thud! Both knees slammed heavily onto the sandy ground. Immortal Su. He knocked his head against the gravel. Once, twice, 3 times. By the time he lifted his head, blood was already visible on his forehead. I was wrong. I shouldn't have followed them against you. Please save my son. His wife knelt down too. The husband and wife, one on each side, kept kowtowing to me. As long as you're willing to save him, my life will be yours from now on. Please. He's only 3 years old. Zhao Dabiao, who had just been carrying a bench and wanting to beat me, was now kneeling at my feet, crying like a child. Everyone was watching me. Reverence, fear, doubt, and expectation. I knew that from this moment on. The situation had completely reversed, but I had no time to enjoy that feeling. The child's body was convulsing more and more violently. In the eye of Yama, a line of information stabbed into my vision. Name, Zhao Xiaoming. Remaining lifespan, 2 minutes. Cause of death, mechanical asphyxiation. I immediately understood. Vomit had blocked his airway. If it wasn't dealt with, the child would definitely die. Everyone move aside. I handed the statue of General Wu Dao to my father. Then I took the child into my arms. Old Master Gao hurriedly asked, "Can you really save him?" "Whether I can or not, we'll only know after trying. But the one Yama wants. Then I'll snatch him from Yama's hands." The moment those words came out, the entire scene fell deathly silent again. I turned the child over and quickly examined his mouth and breathing. There was no time. Only 2 minutes left. If I hadn't appeared, the eye of Yama would never have been wrong. But now, I was going to forcibly change his death date. If I saved him, I would solidify my identity as a divine envoy in front of the whole village. If I failed, everything I had just built would collapse instantly. What was even more troublesome was that I didn't know what price I would pay for defying heaven and changing fate. But I had no way back. Looking at the child in my arms, who was about to stop breathing, my hands immediately exerted force. Zhao Xiaoming, spit this breath out for me. Without my permission. No one is taking you away today. Saving a life was like fighting a fire. Since I had decided to act, I had no intention of wasting time. I placed the statue of General Wu Dao steadily on the stone table, turned around, and took the child from Zhao Dabiao's arms. Brother Dabiao, let go. Zhao Dabiao was already scared stupid, but his arms were still locked tightly around the child. Su Tian, my son, can my son still be saved? If you want to save him, then listen to me. I let out a low shout, and his whole body trembled. Finally, he loosened his grip. I had the child lie flat on the ground, then cupped my hands toward the deity statue on the stone table. Lord Wu Dao above. To save a life today, this kid can only defy divine will once. As soon as the words fell, the entire courtyard suddenly went silent. The villagers who had still been questioning me just moments ago all shut their mouths. Some secretly glanced at the deity statue. Some lowered their heads and muttered prayers. No one even dared to breathe too heavily. No one dared take Lord Wu Dao's name lightly. Zhao Dabiao was still kneeling beside me. He stared fixedly at me, and the panic in his eyes slowly steadied. Right now, he could only believe in me. Old Master Gao stood at the front of the crowd with his cane, his brows tightly furrowed. He first looked at the deity statue, then at me. This kid, could he really have Lord Wu Dao's protection? In the corner, Zhao Wenyan was still stubbornly running his mouth. He sure acts the part. I don't believe he can really save the boy. Zhao Dabiao abruptly turned his head, his gaze so fierce it looked as if he wanted to eat someone alive. Say one more word and try me. Zhao Wenyan shrank his neck and didn't dare make another sound. I ignored them. The child's face had already turned purple, and his breathing was faint. If we delayed any longer, not even an immortal could save him. I immediately adjusted his head, supported his jaw, cleared his airway, and then quickly struck his back. Once, twice, 3 times. The courtyard was terrifyingly quiet. Everyone was staring at my hands. Hit harder. If you don't understand, shut up. Without lifting my head, I continued moving with more force, while always controlling where I struck. Suddenly, the child's body trembled. Cough, cough, cough. A weak cough entered everyone's ears. Zhao Dabiao suddenly lunged over. Xiaoming, don't touch him. I raised my hand and stopped him with a shout, then adjusted the child's position again. The next second, a lump of filth mixed with food residue came out of the child's mouth. He spat it out. He really spat it out. He's saved. The crowd instantly exploded. Everyone be quiet. I pressed a hand against the child's chest and continued treating him. After a dozen or so seconds, color finally returned to the child's face. Immediately after, wah, a loud cry pierced through the courtyard. At that moment, Zhao Dabiao and his wife completely broke down. The two of them rushed over and held the child, crying until their whole bodies trembled. Xiaoming, you scared your dad to death. Mom is here. Mom is here. After confirming that the child had truly recovered, the couple turned and knelt before me. Immortal Su, thank you. Thank you, Lord Wu Dao. You saved my son. That means you saved our whole family. The two of them kowtowed again and again, their foreheads hitting the ground with loud thuds. I immediately reached out to stop them. Get up. The child has only just recovered. Look after him first. Immortal Su, I, Zhao Dabiao, will never forget this kindness for the rest of my life. His voice trembled, tears rolling down his face. The surrounding villagers finally came back to their senses as well. The next second, everyone looked toward the statue of General Wu Dao on the stone table in unison. Some bowed. Some pressed their palms together. Some even knelt down on the spot. Divine. Truly divine. The child was almost out of breath just now, but the boy from the Su family forced him back to life. What boy from the Su family? Call him Immortal Su. Yes, yes, Immortal Su. I said disrespectful things just now. Lord Wu Dao, please don't blame me. A moment ago, their faces had been full of doubt. Now, one by one, only reverence and flattery remained in their eyes. Those who had mocked me either lowered their heads and admitted fault or quietly shrank to the back of the crowd, afraid I would remember them. Old Master Gao walked up to me with his cane. He first bowed deeply to the deity statue, then stared at me for a long while. Boy from the Su family. Old Master, please speak. Whether or not you truly have Lord Wu Dao's protection, today you saved this child. That makes you a benefactor of Qingshan village. He abruptly struck his cane against the ground. From today onward, if anyone dares make things difficult for you, I, Gao Shou, will be the first to object. The crowd immediately echoed him. That's right. Whoever dares go against Immortal Su is going against the whole village. I didn't accept the praise. The more it was a time like this, the less I could let it go to my head. I walked to the stone table and knelt on both knees. This kid defied fate today only to save a life. If Lord Wu Dao lays blame, all consequences will be borne by me, Su Tian, alone. The courtyard became quiet again. Zhao Dabiao's eyes were red, and the way he looked at me contained only guilt. Not long ago, he had followed others in mocking me. Now, I had dragged his son back from the gates of hell. That contrast was enough to make him unable to lift his head for the rest of his life. From somewhere in the crowd, someone spoke coldly. Wasn't someone saying just now that Immortal Su was pretending to be mysterious? Everyone's gaze immediately turned toward the corner. Zhao Wenyan and Niu Tsuehua's faces both turned white. Niu Tsuehua panicked on the spot. It has nothing to do with me. She suddenly pointed at Zhao Wenyan. It was all him. He was the one who said my man's death had something to do with Immortal Su. That's why I got muddle-headed and followed along. Immortal Su, I was wrong. I apologize to you. Zhao Wenyan was stabbed in the back by her in public, and cold sweat instantly broke out on his forehead. He looked at me, then looked around. The situation had completely changed. The village chief was dead. Zhao Dabiao owed me a life. Old Master Gao was publicly protecting me. In all of Qingshan village, who would still dare offend me lightly? Zhao Wenyan reacted quickly. He dropped to his knees with a thud, raised his hand, and slapped himself twice. Smack! Smack! The sound was crisp and loud. In the blink of an eye, both sides of his face swelled. Immortal Su, I deserve to be beaten. As he spoke, he frantically admitted fault. His tone so humble he seemed eager to degrade himself into the mud. I was blind before. From today onward, if you tell me to go east, I absolutely won't go west. As long as you say the word, I'll do anything. Everyone looked at me. They probably thought I would seize the chance to crush Zhao Wenyan underfoot. But I only swept him a glance. A small figure like him was no longer worth my attention now. Trampling him would indeed feel satisfying. But ruining the image I had just established for a moment of satisfaction wasn't worth it. Qingshan village couldn't trap me for the rest of my life either. I picked up the statue of General Wu Dao again and turned to leave. As I walked out of the crowd, I left behind only one sentence. From today onward, I, Su Tian, will establish a divine hall. Anyone who wishes to ask about life and death or determine cause and effect may come to me, so long as they carry sincerity in their heart. When my voice fell, no one dared stop me. That evening, just after sunset, a long line formed outside the Su family's door. Old Master Gao stood at the very front. Zhao Dabiao's family had brought the most things. Chickens, ducks, fish, meat, 2 big bags of fruit, and a thick red envelope. The Zhao Xiaoming I had saved held the red envelope, following closely beside his parents. Zhao Wenyan came too. He carried gifts, his 2 swollen cheeks on display. Even though people around him kept rolling their eyes at him, he pretended not to see it. Face. In the face of life and death, what was face worth? My parents stood at the doorway, completely stunned. My father rubbed his hands nervously, not knowing where to put them. Old Master Gao, why don't you come in and sit first? With everyone standing at the door, I really feel bad. Old Master Gao waved his hand. Su Tian is inside arranging the divine hall. We cannot intrude carelessly. If we disturb Lord Wu Dao, that would be no small matter. Zhao Dabiao hurriedly chimed in. Uncle Su, don't be so polite with us. It's nothing for us to stand a while. Since Old Master Gao didn't go in, the others naturally didn't dare move. My parents could only wait with them. During that time, many people chased after them asking questions. Anghua, when did Su Tian receive Lord Wu Dao's protection? Guilan, did you two know about this long ago? How would my parents know? The 2 of them stammered, unable to explain anything clearly. They were more panicked inside than anyone. If I had merely gotten lucky, but then exposed myself later, the Su family would completely become the laughingstock of the entire village. Not long after, I opened the door. Creak. Everyone outside the yard immediately fell silent. I swept my gaze over the crowd. The old master is an elder. You may come first. Good. Old Master Gao didn't decline. Leaning on his cane, he followed me into the house. Passing through the simple living room, I pushed open the door to my room. The room had already been cleaned up. Against the wall stood an old wooden table. Although one leg was missing a section, I had propped it up very firmly. A red cloth was spread across the table. The statue of General Wu Dao stood in the center. Candle flames flickered on both sides, making the deity's statue appear even more imposing. Old Master Gao's expression became solemn. He took the initiative to light 3 sticks of incense and inserted them into the incense burner. White smoke rose. Only then did he turn to look at me. "Boy from the Su family, there are no outsiders here, so I won't beat around the bush. Please speak. I saw your ability to save someone today. But you said you can determine life and death and see cause and effect." He didn't continue. I already understood. He wanted to test me personally. I raised my head and looked at him. Several lines of information instantly appeared. Name: Gao Shou. Remaining lifespan: 3 days. Cause of death: natural death at the end of his allotted lifespan. When I saw the result, my heart still sank. Gao Shou was 102 years old this year. Aside from inconvenient legs and feet, he didn't seem to have any serious illness. But a person's body was like a lamp. Now, the oil in his lamp had already reached the bottom. No matter how intact the outer shell looked, it couldn't stop the lamp from going out. What was more, he would die a natural death at the end of his allotted lifespan. This was fate. I couldn't save him. Seeing that I wasn't speaking, Old Master Gao immediately frowned. "What? You can't see it?" I stared at him and spoke directly. "Old Master, there is something that may not sound pleasant. Say it." I raised 3 fingers. 3 days. The expression on his face instantly stiffened. "What does 3 days mean?" "You only have 3 days of life remaining." As soon as the words fell, Old Master Gao's hand abruptly tightened around his cane. His gaze suddenly became sharp. "Young man, do you know what you're saying?" "I do. I am 102 years old. Although my body is not like a young person's, I can eat and sleep. And you say I will die in 3 days? Not an accidental death, nor death from illness." I did not avoid his gaze. "It will be natural death at the end of your allotted lifespan." Old Master Gao stared fixedly at me. I calmly looked back at him. After a long while, he suddenly laughed. "Good. What a formidable younger generation." After saying this, he turned and left. I didn't stop him. Some things only needed to be said. Whether he believed it or not was his matter. As soon as Old Master Gao went out, the villagers immediately surrounded him. "Old Master, how was it? Was Immortal Su accurate? What did he say to you?" Old Master Gao's face darkened. "Move aside." Everyone was so frightened they quickly retreated to both sides. He took a few Gao family juniors with him and left without looking back. Zhao Dabiao held his child and looked at his departing back with a frown. What happened to the old master? No one answered. Zhao Dabiao was too lazy to think more about it. "It's my turn." He brought his wife, child, and gifts inside. As soon as they saw me, the couple wanted to kneel again. I quickly stepped forward and supported him. "Brother Dabiao, don't kneel." "I must kneel." Zhao Dabiao's eyes were red. "I was blind before and followed others in targeting you. But you disregarded past grudges and saved my son. I couldn't repay this kindness even with my life." His wife also spoke while holding the child. "Immortal Su, from now on, our family will properly worship Lord Wu Dao and properly repay you too." I patted Zhao Dabiao's shoulder. "We're all from the same village. There's no need to say these things. The child was able to meet me today because his life wasn't meant to end. Watch him carefully from now on. Don't let anything happen again." "Yes, I'll remember it." The family of 3 left after thanking me 1,000 times. I picked up the red envelope on the table and weighed it in my hand. It was very thick, at least 5,000 yuan. For an ordinary rural family, this was already no small amount. Zhao Dabiao had a violent temper and wasn't too clever, but his heart wasn't bad. He had opposed me before only because someone had instigated him. Just as I thought this, a fawning voice sounded outside the door. "Immortal Su, may I come in?" I looked up. Zhao Wenyan was standing at the door, craning his neck and peeking in, his smile uglier than crying. "Come in." He immediately looked delighted and quickly carried his gifts into the room. But the moment he saw the statue of General Wu Dao on the offering table, his legs trembled. I knew what he was afraid of. Before the village chief's accident, I had predicted his death calamity. Before Zhao Xiaoming's accident, I had also seen the problem. Both times, I had been right. What Zhao Wenyan feared most now was that I would suddenly look at him and say, "Go home and prepare your coffin." Sure enough, as soon as he reached me, he dropped to his knees with a thud. Immediately after, There were two more slaps. Smack. Smack. Immortal Sue, I really know I was wrong. I was muddle-headed before. I was a bastard. He was emotional, nearly cursing, but forcibly swallowed the words and only continued scolding himself as worthless. Please be magnanimous and spare me this once. From now on, I will definitely be a good person and never dare act recklessly again. After saying this, he began kowtowing again. I frowned. Get up. You forgive me? Remember one sentence. I looked into his eyes. When people act, heaven watches. Zhao Wenyan trembled all over and nodded repeatedly. I'll remember. I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. He left the offerings and red envelope behind, bowing as he backed out of the room. Next, several more villagers came in. I used the Eye of Yama to inspect them one by one. None of them had an imminent death calamity, so I said a few ambiguous words and sent them away one after another. That night, I received nearly 20,000 yuan just in red envelopes. When I handed the money to my parents, the two of them didn't react for a long while. My father held that stack of money, his hands trembling. Xiaodian, this money, can we really take it? We can, but you never learned any of this before. My mother was even more direct. You said during the day that you had found a new job. The job you meant isn't fortune-telling for people, is it? More or less. How can it be more or less? She anxiously grabbed my hand. Xiaodian, tell Mom the truth. What exactly is going on with you? I held her hand in return. Dad, Mom. For 3 years, you worried too much about me. I was useless before and made you suffer humiliation with me. But from today onward, that won't happen again. I pushed the money in front of them. This is only the beginning. From now on, you two can enjoy life in peace. My father opened his mouth, but in the end he still didn't try to persuade me. His son had lain around at home for 3 years and was finally willing to do something now. Even if this matter seemed somewhat absurd to him, he didn't dare pour cold water on me again. Only, they didn't know. While we were talking, the Gao family had already fallen into complete chaos. I only learned about this later. As soon as old Master Gao returned home, his children and grandchildren immediately surrounded him. Grandpa, what did that kid say to you? Old Master Gao didn't answer. Not until someone heard the words 3 days of life from one of the people who had accompanied him did the Gao family explode on the spot. He's cursing you to die. We can't swallow this. I'll take people right now and smash his divine hall. A brat who hasn't even grown all his hair really thinks he's a living immortal? Several Gao family men turned and were about to rush out the door. Bang! The cane struck the ground heavily. All of you stop right there. At old Master Gao's angry shout, everyone immediately stopped. Grandpa, he practically pointed at your nose and cursed you. Shut up. Old Master Gao sat in the grand armchair, his expression instead calming down. When he had first heard that he had only 3 days left, he had indeed been furious. But after returning home, he suddenly thought of his wife, who had passed away many years ago. 102 years old. He had long since lived enough. If Yama wants someone dead at the 3rd watch, who can keep them until the 5th? He raised his eyes and looked at the Gao family members. Since that boy from the Su family dares determine that I have 3 days of life, then I will wait 3 days. But what if, after 3 days, you are still alive? Someone asked cautiously. Old Master Gao tightened his grip on his cane, his gaze suddenly turning cold. Then from now on, I will make it impossible for the Su family to take even a single step in Qingshan village. Early the next morning, the news that I had declared Gao Shou had only 3 days left spread throughout the entire village. There was no need to guess. The news had leaked from the Gao family's side. The area beneath the big banyan tree was packed with people. The villagers who had called me Immortal Su yesterday had changed their tune again today. Su Tian really is too bold. That's old Master Gao, a 102-year-old veteran of the War of Resistance, and he dares curse him? The old master's body is perfectly fine. How could he die 3 days later? I think after he saved one child, he immediately forgot his own surname. Some even attacked me over the matter of saving Zhao Xiaoming. I asked my son in the city. He said what Su Tian used was just first aid technique. It wasn't some immortal art at all. So he's borrowing Lord Wudao's name to pretend to be mysterious? Definitely. If he's really capable, why doesn't he say something else? Opening his mouth and saying people will die? Isn't that wicked? The wind had shifted again. so fast it was laughable. Yesterday, they were afraid of me. Today, they had decided I had offended the Gao family, so they immediately stood up to trample me. But I didn't go out to explain. It was only 3 days. Tom would block all their mouths for me. Just as the whole village was waiting to see me make a fool of myself, a black Maybach stopped at the entrance of Qingshan village. Such a luxury car looked particularly conspicuous in Qingshan village. The car door opened. A middle-aged man stepped out. He wore gray casual clothes and dressed low-key, but the pressure about him couldn't be hidden. It was the aura of someone who had long held a high position. His name was Jiang Lian, and he had come to Qingshan village to find me. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. Later, Jiang Lian personally told me that after getting out of the car, the first thing he said was, "This is the place Xiao Zhang mentioned?" The driver nodded. "Yes, President Jiang." Jiang Lian looked around the village entrance, anxiety in his eyes. He said there is an expert hidden here who can determine life and death. I hope this won't be another wasted trip. Immediately after, the front passenger door opened. A woman wearing gold-rimmed glasses walked down with a coat in her hands. "President Jiang, the morning wind is cold. Please put on your coat first." Jiang Lian took the coat, but didn't immediately start walking. "Secretary Lin, I'm here. Tell me, do you think there really are people in this world who can see life and death in advance?" The woman paused for a moment. "I didn't believe it before. And now, since you came here personally, that means you already believe it halfway in your heart." Jiang Lian fell silent for a few seconds, then smiled bitterly and put on the coat. "It isn't belief. It's that I have no other way left." He raised his head and looked toward Qingshan village. At that moment, the villagers were still gathered under the big banyan tree, waiting to see me become a joke. No one expected that a truly important figure had already come looking for me. Jiang Lian had never intended to make this trip high profile. Some true otherworldly experts often had strange temperaments. If he entered the village with a large group of bodyguards and great fanfare, the display would certainly be grand, but it might not win favor. Therefore, he brought only his female secretary, Rao Ting, and quietly walked into Qingshan village. Not long after the two of them entered the village, they noticed the crowd gathered beneath the big banyan tree. That boy from the Su family has really gone too far this time. 3 days? He actually dared say old Master Gao has only 3 days of life left. In my opinion, he's just a blind cat that happened to run into a dead mouse. Yesterday, he saved a child, and today he really thinks he's an immortal. Maybe the village chief's matter was also just something he guessed right by chance. The villagers were all talking at once, and almost all of them were discussing the same person. Su Tian. Jiang Lian didn't rush forward. Instead, he stood at the edge of the crowd and listened quietly. A moment later, not only was there no disappointment in his eyes, but a trace of excitement flashed through them. As for the slander spoken by those villagers, he didn't take it to heart at all. Whether a person could succeed depended not only on ability and luck, but more importantly on vision. In the eyes of these ordinary villagers, someone who could determine life and death was no different from a crow's mouth or a jinx. But Jiang Lian didn't think that way. If this Mr. Su truly could see through life and death calamities, then even if he couldn't directly reverse life and death, as long as he offered a word or two of guidance at a critical moment, it would be enough for someone to avoid a fatal disaster. Such ability was far greater than those so-called masters who sat on meditation cushions, held scriptures, spoke a few ambiguous words, and finally reached out asking for incense money. Thinking of this, Jiang Lian finally stepped forward. "Excuse me, where does that Mr. Su live?" The sudden voice made the villagers turn their heads one after another. Only then did they discover that two strangers had appeared in the village at some point. "Huh? Who are these two? They definitely aren't from our village. Look at how they're dressed. You can tell at a glance they aren't ordinary people." Someone kindly reminded him. "Boss, why are you looking for that boy from the Su family? Let me tell you, nothing good comes out of his mouth. It's only been 2 days, and he's almost cursed 2 people in the village to death. Take my advice. Go back where you came from. Don't get yourself stained with bad luck for no reason." Jiang Lian's expression didn't change. At the edge of the crowd, however, Zhao Wenyan's eyes rolled. This man looked rich at a glance. Since he had come specially to find immortal Su, he definitely had a request. If Zhao Wenyan took the initiative to lead him over, He could not only sell this man a favor, but also bring Immortal Su a piece of business. Most importantly, he could also gain some goodwill in front of Immortal Su. One arrow, three eagles. Thinking this, Zhao Wenyin could no longer hold himself back. Make way, everyone make way. He pushed through the crowd and moved close to Jiang Lian with a face full of smiles. Boss, I know where Immortal Su lives. I'll take you there. Jiang Lian sized him up from head to toe, his brows furrowing almost imperceptibly. The young man before him had shifty eyes and didn't look like an honest person at first glance. However, Jiang Lian was not an ordinary person after all. He never judged people only by appearance. The fact that this person could immediately step forward after seeing an opportunity, with just that bit of discernment and decisiveness, already made him better than most people who only watched from the sidelines. Zhao Wenyin didn't know what Jiang Lian was thinking. As soon as he squeezed to the front, he hurriedly began boasting about me. Boss, although I don't know what business you have with Immortal Su, there's one thing I dare guarantee with my head. Our Immortal Su's ability is absolutely divine. With just one glance, he can determine life and death. You know what a living Yama is, right? As long as Immortal Su is willing to act, there's nothing he can't solve. Jiang Lian didn't state his position and only said faintly, I hope what you said is true. It must be true. Zhao Wenyin patted his chest and turned to lead the way. Follow me. Jiang Lian and Rao Ting followed behind him. No matter how the villagers around them discussed, Jiang Lian didn't look back. To him, he was not afraid that this Mr. Su's methods were unorthodox. What he truly feared was that all of this was nothing more than villagers spreading rumors and exaggerating. If that was really the case, he would probably be disappointed again this time. At this moment, inside the Su family courtyard, I sat in a chair, holding the statue of General Wu Dao in my arms, carefully wiping it with a red cloth. My parents sat to the side, sighing from time to time. Shouting on. My father finally couldn't help speaking. Right now, everyone in the village is talking about you. The Gao family has even put out word. If, after 3 days, old Master Gao is still perfectly alive, they definitely won't let this go. This storm had grown too large. Even if my father was usually calm, now he couldn't avoid feeling uneasy. His son had finally pulled himself together, and just as life seemed to show some hope, who could have expected that overnight, the village's attitude would change again? I put down the red cloth and placed the statue of General Wu Dao properly back onto the offering table. Dad, Mom, you don't need to worry. Since I dared say it, I have absolute certainty. 3 days from now, old Master Gao will definitely die peacefully at the end of his allotted lifespan. My mother opened her mouth. Mom isn't saying she doesn't believe you. It's just enough. My father waved his hand and interrupted her. Our son has grown up. He knows what he's doing. We saw the matters of the village chief and Zhao Dabiao's child with our own eyes. No matter how absurd it seems, as long as my son says it, I believe it. Although he said that, the worry between his brows didn't lessen in the slightest. At this point, saying more was useless. Whether the Su family could continue staying in Qingshan village probably depended mostly on the result 3 days later. Just then, Zhao Wenyin's voice suddenly came from outside the courtyard. Immortal Su, are you home? A distinguished guest has come looking for you. I raised my head and looked toward the courtyard gate. Zhao Wenyin was the first to duck his head and walk in. Behind him followed a man and a woman. The man was dressed in a low-key manner, yet carried an aura of authority that was difficult to conceal. The woman wore gold-rimmed glasses and had a capable expression. She was clearly no ordinary secretary. I had originally planned to give them only a casual glance. But when my gaze fell on the top of the middle-aged man's head, my eyes instantly froze. Line after line of text that only I could see appeared out of thin air. Name, Jiang Lian. Fortune, 10 points. Remaining lifespan, 180 days. Cause of death, at 8 o'clock tonight, death by car accident. Fortune, this was the first time I had ever seen this attribute. Just as doubt arose in my heart, a stream of unfamiliar information poured into my mind. Fortune, only those who have accumulated a large amount of merit can obtain it. Helping a person with fortune avoid a life and death calamity allows you to absorb their fortune and improve the abilities of the Eye of Yama. After reading this information clearly, my breathing immediately stopped. The Eye of Yama could actually be upgraded. The Jiang Lian before me was practically like a special quest delivering itself to my door in a game. As long as I helped him resolve his death calamity, I could obtain the fortune on him and thereby make the Eye of Yama stronger. However, after a brief surge of excitement, I frowned again. Right now, aside from using the Eye of Yama to see information about life and death, I was no different from an ordinary person in every other respect. And this man called Jiang Lian was obviously no ordinary person. A calamity that could make such a figure die an unnatural death definitely wouldn't be simple. With my current ability, could I really help him resolve it? I looked through all of Qingshan village and didn't discover even the slightest bit of fortune. From this, it can be seen that people possessing fortune must be extremely rare. If I miss this opportunity, who knows how long I'll have to wait for the next one. Thinking this, I quickly calmed down. The opportunity had already delivered itself to my door. Whether I could do it or not, I had to first understand the situation. At the same time, Jiang Lian was also sizing me up. His first reaction was, too young. Although before coming, someone had already revealed information about me to him. After truly seeing me, a few traces of doubt still arose in his heart. A young man in his 20s. Could he really see through life and death? If he hadn't searched everywhere and failed to find a truly capable person, he wouldn't have personally come to Qingshan village with the mindset of treating a dead horse like a living one. He suppressed his doubts, stepped forward, and cupped his hands. I am Jiang Lian. Greetings, Mr. Su. I picked up 3 sticks of incense and inserted them into the incense burner. Amid the curling white smoke, I raised my eyes and looked at him. Boss Jiang, the space between your brows is dark. Your time of death is near. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere in the courtyard abruptly froze. The courtesy on Jiang Lian's face instantly faded. His gaze darkened slightly, and his tone turned somewhat colder. Mr. Su must be joking. Although I am busy handling various matters all year round and normally neglect exercise, overall, my body is still fairly healthy. Moreover, I undergo specialized physical examinations every month. This is our first meeting, and yet you say my death is near. Isn't that a little alarmist? My expression was calm, and I remained seated without moving. Boss Jiang, your status is extraordinary. How can you still be so naive? In this world, illness has never been the only thing that can kill a person. Jiang Lian's gaze sharpened. Rao Ting, standing beside him, couldn't hold back anymore. How impudent. Do you know who President Jiang is? I glanced at her faintly. You are the same. Soon. You. Rao Ting's face turned pale with anger. She considered herself to have a good temper in ordinary times, but facing my repeated curses, her chest still couldn't help rising and falling violently. Beside them, Zhao Wenyan stared until his eyes nearly went straight. He had never seen many beautiful women to begin with, let alone an urban beauty like Rao Ting, who was outstanding in figure, temperament, and appearance. But unlike Zhao Wenyan, Jiang Lian, whose face had just been gloomy, suddenly burst into loud laughter. Ha! Hearing of someone's reputation is never as good as meeting them in person. Mr. Su truly speaks frankly. You are not someone ordinary people can compare to. As soon as the words left his mouth, he took a bank card from inside his jacket and placed it on the offering table. There's 500,000 in here. Consider it a deposit. As long as Mr. Su can help me resolve this calamity, once the matter is settled, I'll offer another 500,000. 1 million. A full 1 million. Zhao Wenyan's eyes went round, and his mouth opened so wide it looked as if an egg could be stuffed inside. In all his life, forget 1 million. Even 10,000 yuan had already seemed like an enormous sum to him. Even though I had long known that after obtaining the eyes of King Yan, my life was bound to be anything but ordinary, the moment I heard that number, my pupils still contracted uncontrollably. That was 1 million. To the Su family right now, it was practically an astronomical figure. Jiang Lian keenly caught the change in my expression and laughed inwardly. He had finally clawed back around. Ever since entering the gate, he had been led around by the nose by me. Now, with just 1 million, he had made my emotions waver. The power of money was indeed useful. Rao Ting noticed this as well. She pursed her lips, and a trace of contempt appeared in her eyes. As expected, so-called reclusive experts were nothing more than this. Mr. Jiang, you're too polite. I quickly regained my composure and reached out to pick up the bank card. What's the password? The courtyard instantly fell into a strange silence. It wasn't just Jiang Lian and Rao Ting. Even Zhao Wenyan was stunned. No way. For a mere 500,000. You don't even want your air of an expert anymore? Jiang Lian was also taken aback. But in the end, he was no ordinary person, and he quickly reacted. Haha, that was my oversight. Since I'm giving you a bank card, how could I forget to tell Mr. Su the password? 6 eights. 888,888. That's right. I nodded and, without the slightest courtesy, stuffed the bank card into my pocket. 6 eights. That password is quite auspicious. What air of an expert? Could it be Eden? For the past 3 years, I had lived at home in a daze, and my parents had suffered no end of hardship and scorn because of me. Now that an opportunity was right in front of me, I had no reason to pretend to be aloof and noble. 500,000. An ordinary person might scrimp and save for 10 years and still not put away that much money. Besides, even if Jiang Lian didn't give me a single cent, in order to obtain the fortune tied to him and upgrade the eyes of King Yan, I would still think of a way to help him resolve his death calamity. This 500,000 was already the money he was paying to buy his life. I took it with a clear conscience. Seeing that I had accepted the bank card, the heaviness between Jiang Lian's brows instead eased somewhat. If I dared to accept the money, at the very least, it meant I had the confidence to take on this matter. If I were only a swindling charlatan, faced with a 500,000 yuan deposit, I might not truly dare to reach out for it. Because some people's money came with a price once taken. I drew 3 sticks of incense from the table and handed them to Jiang Lian. Offer incense to the Fifth Path Lord. Jiang Lian looked toward the statue of General Wu Dao on the offering table, and his expression gradually turned solemn. He accepted the incense, lit it with a lighter, raised it with both hands to the level of his brow, and bowed 3 times with utmost respect. Only after finishing all this did he place the incense into the burner. I nodded slightly, rose, and picked up the statue. Come inside with me. Jiang Lian was briefly stunned, then picked up the incense burner and followed behind me. Rao Ting and Zhao Wenyan both remained in the courtyard. If they still lacked the sense not to follow us in at a time like this, then they would truly be fools. After entering the slightly dim room, I first placed the statue of General Wu Dao back on the old offering table. Then I covered the upper half of the statue with a red cloth. Only after Jiang Lian set down the incense burner did I turn and look at him. Mr. Jiang, do you trust me? Jiang Lian clearly had not expected me to suddenly ask this question. He fell silent for a moment, then smiled faintly. If you ask whether I trust you completely, naturally that's impossible. But his gaze fell on my pocket. In the whole of Linchuan City, there aren't many people who can accept 500,000 from me without changing expression. Since Mr. Su dares to take this money, I presume you have genuine ability. Wouldn't you say? In the courtyard, he had appeared refined and courteous. But now, with only the 2 of us left in the room, the aura around him immediately changed. Those eyes seemed calm, but hidden in their depths was a trace of warning. He was reminding me, his money was not so easy to take. If I really treated him as a rich fool with more money than sense, then the unlucky one in the end definitely would not be him. I was not affected by his aura. Instead, my mind was rapidly analyzing the information given by the eyes of King Yan. Jiang Lian still had 180 days left to live. In the end, he would die in a car accident at 8 o'clock in the evening. With his status, he would certainly have a dedicated driver whenever he went out. The car he rode in would also be a luxury vehicle with extremely high safety performance. When ordinary vehicles saw a car of that caliber, they would usually avoid it subconsciously. What kind of car accident could take his life? The information here was rather thought-provoking. There were only 2 greatest possibilities. Either a business rival wanted him dead, or someone inside the Jiang family wanted his life. When I said earlier that you were facing a deadly calamity, I wasn't trying to scare you. I spoke again. Jiang Lian frowned. At first, he had indeed thought that when I said his death was near, I was merely deliberately creating tension to draw his attention. But now, it seemed the matter was not quite what he had imagined. Mr. Su, are you sure you're not joking? Whether you believe it or not is up to you. I looked straight into his eyes. But since I've accepted your money, I will think of a way to help you resolve this calamity. Jiang Lian did not speak immediately. He could not figure out just how much I knew. But he knew very clearly in his heart that his current situation was indeed not as calm as it appeared on the surface. Undercurrents had long been surging within the Jiang family. Countless pairs of eyes were fixed on his position. Even he himself did not dare guarantee that every single person around him was worthy of trust. May I ask, Mr. Su, what should I do to remove this crisis? Jiang Lian had originally thought that I would produce a prepared set of explanations. But I only shook my head. The time has not yet come. Before the calamity truly appears, I cannot tell you the exact method to break it. The only thing you can do now is be careful of the people around you, especially those you believe would absolutely never betray you. Jiang Lian's expression changed slightly. I continued. When the time comes, I will naturally take action. There was no way around it. The eyes of King Yin at present could only let me see the result, but could not display the detailed process of what happened. That was all I could say. Jiang Lian stood where he was, motionless for a long while. He had already given 500,000. Yet what he received in return was only the sentence, "Be careful of the people around you." Any roadside fortune teller could say something like that. A feeling of being toyed with immediately surged up in his heart. Just as he was about to speak, a sudden change occurred. I abruptly felt a burning heat between my brows. In the next second, a faint golden light emerged from Jiang Lian's body. That golden light was only as thick as a thumb and quickly condensed into a lifelike little golden dragon with 5 claws. The little golden dragon circled once in midair. Immediately after, it suddenly changed direction and crashed headfirst into the spot between my brows. Boom. My mind instantly went blank. Detected that you have intervened in the impending calamity of a person bearing fortune. Jiang Lian's fate has changed. The target's fortune has been drawn in advance. If the target dies within half a year, the host will suffer karmic backlash. I froze for a moment. It could be advanced. Originally, I had thought I would have to wait until Jiang Lian survived the death calamity half a year later before I could obtain those 10 points of fortune. In the end, the system was even more straightforward than a bank approving a loan. In the next second, 2 prompts exploded in succession. 10 points of fortune devoured. The eyes of King Yin have been enhanced. A tribute panel unlocked. Panel. With a thought, a faint golden screen instantly popped up before my eyes. Host, Su Tian. Fortune, 0 points. Lifespan, 50 years. Exchange ratio, 100 points of fortune can be exchanged for 1 year of lifespan. Talent, Eyes of King Yin. Ability, see through a target's final death calamity, remaining time, and the identity of one person involved behind the calamity. I stared at the final line, and the corners of my mouth could not be suppressed. It had upgraded. Previously, the eyes of King Yin could only tell when a person would die and how they would die. Now, it could even drag out the person involved behind the scenes. I had just been thinking about how to make Jiang Lian believe me. Now, the answer had been delivered straight before my eyes. I looked at him again. The information above his head immediately refreshed. Name, Jiang Lian. Fortune, 10 points. Lifespan, 180 days. Cause of death, at 8 o'clock in the evening half a year later, he will die in a car accident deliberately engineered by his half-sister, Jiang Qin. Jiang Qin, his half-sister, the mastermind behind it. While I was still looking at the information, Jiang Lian had already lost patience. He stepped forward, his voice completely turning cold. Mr. Su, you took 500,000 from me, only to tell me that the time has not yet come? Do you think my money is that easy to take? The atmosphere in the courtyard instantly grew tense. Jiang Lian's secretary behind him also fixed her eyes on me, her gaze full of warning. But I smiled. Boss Jiang, don't be impatient. I'll give you another name. His eyes narrowed. Who? I stared at him and spoke each word clearly. Jiang Qin. Boom. Jiang Lian's entire body stiffened. That oppressive aura from just now scattered by more than half in an instant. He stared fixedly at me, his Adam's apple bobbing several times. How do you know her? This time, even his voice had gone hoarse. I did not answer. I only walked to the offering table and lit a stick of incense for the Fifth Path Lord. For the next 6 months, keep a close eye on her. Your death calamity is connected to her. Jiang Lian's expression instantly turned ugly. What else do you know? Quite a lot. I turned around. But saying too much now won't benefit you. You only need to remember one thing. Jiang Qin wants your life. Jiang Lian abruptly clenched his fists. On what grounds? That's something you'll have to ask your Jiang family yourselves. He fell silent, but I could tell that he believed it. Because the name, Jiang Qin, was clearly not something an ordinary person could know. After a few seconds, he suddenly asked me, "A car accident?" My brows moved slightly. This man reacted quickly enough. That's right. At 8 o'clock in the evening half a year from now. As for the specific day or which road, the time has not yet come for me to tell you. I did not speak too absolutely. Jiang Lian's fate had already been interfered with by me, and the future could change at any moment. Revealing too many details now might instead trigger new karma. More importantly, I had to keep this connection with him firmly in my grasp. The 10 points of fortune were already in hand. Within half a year, he absolutely could not die. Jiang Lian closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, the way he looked at me had completely changed. There was less suspicion, more fear, and also a trace of respect. "Mr. Su, I was offensive today. There are some urgent matters at the company. I must go back immediately and investigate clearly. In a couple of days, I'll personally come to visit again." I nodded. "That's fine. But from now on, you'd best come every month to offer a stick of incense to the Fifth Path Lord. With sincerity, one may survive." Jiang Lian glanced at the statue covered by the red cloth. This time, he no longer put on the airs of a boss. He walked to the offering table and bowed 3 times properly. "I respectfully ask the Fifth Path Lord for protection." After saying that, he left with his secretary. I suddenly called out to him, "Boss Jiang, is there something else? How did you find me?" I had only awakened the eyes of King Yin a few days ago. A figure of Jiang Lian's level could not possibly come to Qingshan village for no reason, much less directly take out 500,000. Hearing this, he smiled. "Our group has cooperation with Qiming Business." Deputy General Manager Zhang Henian said that he had a nephew who had received the true teachings of the Fifth Path Lord and could determine life and death. So I came. The smile on my face froze. "Zhang Henian, that cheap uncle of mine. Since when did he think so highly of me?" Jiang Lian did not notice anything unusual about me. I should also thank Director Zhang. Otherwise, I truly wouldn't have met an expert like Mr. Su. He left. I stood at the doorway, watching the sedan disappear at the end of the village road, and already had a judgment in my heart. Zhang Henian would definitely come again. As for why he was helping spread my name, I would naturally know once he came. I turned and went back inside. Just as I sat down, another stream of information suddenly appeared in my mind. It was about karma. By forcefully changing the fate of someone who bore fortune, I was essentially snatching a person from the hands of the heavenly Tao. If the person was saved, the fortune would belong to me. If the person died, I would have to bear the debt as well. Once karmic backlash struck, I would be plagued by bad luck, my body would decline, and my lifespan would be reduced. Even the eyes of King Yin would be suppressed. I would be unable to see lifespans clearly, unable to see through causes of death. In the future, changing fate for others would become twice as difficult. After reading this, my back turned cold. Good grief. These 10 points of fortune really aren't that easy to take. The current Jiang Lian was a ticking time bomb. If he died, I would also suffer along with him. So no matter what plan Jiang Qin had, I had to drag her out. This life, I was definitely protecting it. Jiang Lian's matter temporarily came to an end, but the Gao family's trouble had not stopped. Early the next morning, a shocking piece of news suddenly spread through the village. Old Master Gao had locked himself in his room and had not eaten for an entire day. Dozens of members of the Gao family crowded outside the door, anxiously running in circles. Some smashed the door, some cried and shouted, and more than 10 younger members of the Gao family were clamoring that they were going to come settle accounts with me. It was all Su Tian's curse. If something really happens to the old master, then the Su family must pay with their lives. He dared insult a national hero. This matter absolutely can't be left alone. These words were all told to me by Zhao Wenyan, who had run over. He spoke with spittle flying everywhere, and even imitated the fierce expressions of the Gao family members at the time. "Great Immortal, you didn't see it. Those people were all red-faced and thick-necked, cursing up a storm, wishing they could tear down your courtyard wall on the spot. I sat in front of the offering table and did not even raise my head. And then old Master Gao came out. Zhao Wenyan swallowed, his expression suddenly turning strange. He told everyone to shut up. Then, in front of the entire Gao family, he revealed a secret. I looked up at him. What secret? Zhao Wenyan lowered his voice. He said he wasn't an anti-Japanese war hero at all. He only joined the Nationalist Army in '49. The teacup in my hand paused. No wonder. Most people who had truly gone onto the battlefield against Japan and defended the country had deep fortune. But the first time I saw old Master Gao, there wasn't even a trace of fortune on him. So the so-called national hero had been a lie from beginning to end. How did the Gao family react? They were all dumbfounded. Zhao Wenyan slapped his thigh. One moment they were still shouting about seeking justice for a hero, and the next, they all went silent. Old Master Gao also said that he had hidden this matter for a lifetime because he was afraid of bringing shame to his ancestors. He even said that if you really calculated it correctly, then it was what he deserved. I frowned. He really said that? Absolutely true. Zhao Wenyan leaned closer to me. Great immortal. Now there are already people in the village saying you're a true deity. A secret old Master Gao had hidden for an entire lifetime still couldn't escape your eyes. I glanced at him. I didn't calculate his secret. I only saw his time of death. Zhao Wenyan's smile stiffened, and he immediately changed his words. That's still just as amazing. Enough. I waved my hand. Don't spread rumors in the village, and especially don't provoke the Gao family. Understood, understood. Zhao Wenyan agreed very readily. But I knew that this fellow's mouth could not keep a secret at all. Sure enough, in less than half a day, old Master Gao's matter had spread through all of Qingshan village. The voices of those who had still been cursing me yesterday as a jinx had clearly become much quieter. But the Gao family hated me even more, because I had not only accurately spoken of old Master Gao's time of death, but had also torn open the dignity they had taken pride in. That night, I did not sleep soundly. Early the next morning, my mother's scream directly jolted me awake. Angua, Xiaodian, come out quickly. Something happened. I flipped out of bed and rushed out of the room. As soon as I reached the courtyard gate, a stench of blood rushed toward me. Outside the gate lay a large black dog. Its throat had been cut open. The blood had already coagulated. My father stood beside it, trembling with anger. Who did this? More and more villagers gathered to watch. Some gloated over our misfortune. Some sneered sarcastically. Some even shouted praise at the top of their lungs. Didn't he say he could defy the heavens and change fate? How come he can't even protect his own doorstep? What kind of person is old Master Gao? And he dared curse him. This black dog was thrown well. It should suppress the Su family's evil aura. My father could no longer hold back. He turned and was about to head toward the Gao family. It must have been them. I'll go ask them clearly. I grabbed him. Dad, don't go. Why not? Do you have evidence? My father froze at once. I looked toward the villagers making a racket. Since they dared throw it here, they won't admit it. If we go over now, they'll only turn the accusation back on us. My mother's face was pale. Then are we just going to let it go? Of course not. I stared at the black dog on the ground, my voice turning cold. Whoever did it, I'll make him stand out on his own. The crowd instantly went quiet for a moment. Then someone laughed in a mocking tone again. Still pretending? If you've got the ability, find the person right now. Don't just rely on that mouth of yours to scare people. Just as I was about to speak, a figure suddenly squeezed out from the crowd. Everyone shut up. Zhao Wenyan rushed to my side, his face full of smiles. Great immortal. How could this kind of dirty work require your hands? I'll do it. After saying this, he grabbed the black dog's hind leg and dragged it toward the trash bin. Blood smeared all over his hand, but he did not even frown. The onlookers immediately began cursing. Their words were extremely nasty. Although they did not name him directly, every sentence mocked him as a dog raised by me. Not only did Zhao Wenyan not get angry, he even puffed out his chest. So what? I'm willing to do things for great immortal Su. Even if you wanted to, you wouldn't get the chance. I looked at him, somewhat surprised. In the past, this guy had followed the village chief around and had caused my family no small amount of trouble. Yet now, He was the first to rush out and stand up for me. It seemed Zhang Lian's 500,000 had indeed provoked him quite a bit. Before long, Zhao Dabiao also arrived. He did not waste a word. Carrying a bucket of water, he directly washed away the bloodstains at the entrance. Someone beside him laughed mockingly. He raised his head and glared viciously over. Whoever dares say one more word, stand out and say it to my face. The crowd immediately quieted down considerably. Zhao Dabiao had just nearly lost his son. If I had not acted, he would not even have had a place to cry now. So he was sincerely standing on my side. My father patted his shoulder. Thanks for the trouble. It's no trouble. Zhao Dabiao looked toward me. Mr. Su, you saved my son. From now on, whoever causes trouble for you is causing trouble for me, Zhao Dabiao. I said nothing, but merely remembered those words in my heart. Villagers changed their faces quickly, but those willing to stand out at critical moments, I would not treat them poorly either. The matter of the black dog had just been dealt with, and at noon the next day, the piercing sound of an ambulance rang out again. Old Master Gao was critically ill. The Gao family carried a stretcher out of the courtyard and ran all the way toward the village entrance. The villagers all surrounded them. Some helped. Some watched the commotion. Even more people remembered what I had said before. 3 days. Now, it was exactly the 3rd day. Zhao Wenyan stood outside the crowd, his face turning pale. Great Immortal really called it. Old Master Gao's time is up. He hurriedly covered his mouth. The Gao family members were right nearby. If they heard those words, it would be strange if he did not receive a beating. And I stood in front of my courtyard gate, watching the ambulance leave, without any real satisfaction in my heart. I was not cursing old Master Gao. I had only seen the result in advance. But now, everyone had tied his death together with me. While he was alive, the Gao family hated me. Once he died, the Gao family would only hate me even more. I turned to my parents and said, "Don't go out alone these next few days." My mother was stunned. What happened? I feel something isn't right. My father frowned. The Gao family? Most likely. As soon as my words fell, a man walked over from afar. He wore a black baseball cap. He was very tall. His steps were quick. His right hand had been pressed at his waist the entire time, and there was a bulge under his clothes. Something was clearly hidden there, and the direction he was walking in was precisely my house. I narrowed my eyes, and the eyes of King Yin instantly activated. Several lines of crimson text directly emerged above his head. Name, Gao Qiqiang. Karma, 70 points. Remaining lifespan, 31 days. Cause of death, for massacring the 3 members of Su Tian's family in Qingshan village. He will be lawfully executed by firing squad at 12 noon in 31 days. My mind roared. A family of 3. Me, my dad, my mom. All of us would die at his hands. Gao Qiqiang came closer and closer. After seeing me, he grinned. There was not the slightest goodwill in that smile. Su Tian, everyone in your family is home, right? I stared at the hand he had pressed at his waist and immediately took a step back. At the same time, I growled at my parents. Get inside. Lock the door right now. The smile on Gao Qiqiang's face vanished instantly. The next second, he abruptly flipped open his coat. The muzzle of a gun was aimed directly at me. The blazing sun hung overhead. Yet my back was instantly soaked through. Gao Qiqiang. I would never mistake that name even in death. 10 years ago, the Zhao family and the Gao family had fought fiercely over a piece of land. Back then, Gao Qiqiang was still selling fish in town. When he heard that the Gao family had suffered a loss, he carried a fish-killing knife and rushed back overnight, charging straight into the Zhao family's home and hacking at people. If the neighbors had not heard the screams and rushed in, someone really would have died that night. Afterward, he fled. Before leaving, he even left behind a sentence. Whoever dared touch the Gao family again, he would come back to collect their life. From then on, the Gao family banded together, and the Zhao family no longer dared push them too hard. Everyone feared this madman sneaking into their home in the middle of the night. But now he had returned, and he was coming straight for me. He wore a hat and a mask, covering himself tightly. If it were anyone else, they would never recognize him. But I had the eyes of King Yin. The face hidden beneath the mask, I could see it clearly. This lunatic. I held my breath, pretended I had not discovered anything, and slowly stood up. He still did not know he had been exposed. This was my only chance. I took out my phone and quickly dialed the police. Hello, I want to report a crime. At the Sioux residence in Qingshan village, a fugitive has come to the door carrying a weapon. Yes, his name is Gao Qiqiang. After saying that, I turned and entered the courtyard, then locked the gate bolt behind me. The instant I cut off his line of sight, I broke into a run. Dad, Mom, something's happened. I rushed into the main room. My dad, Suanghua, had just stood up when my words made his face change in shock. Gao Qiqiang is back. Who? The Gao Qiqiang who slashed people with a knife 10 years ago. The cup in my mother's hand dropped to the ground with a snap. Didn't he run away? He's back. He's right outside our gate. My father's face went deathly pale. Back then, he had personally seen the miserable state of the Zhao family household. Call people quickly. I've already called the police. I also called Zhao Wenyan and Zhao Dabiao. I grabbed the wooden sticks by the wall and stuffed one into my dad's hands. But it will take time for them to get here. Right now, we can only rely on ourselves. My mother's legs went weak. Xiaodian, how about we run through the back door? There's no time. I looked toward the courtyard gate and lowered my voice extremely low. Since he dared come back, he has no intention of letting us go. If we run out, we'll only leave our backs to him. My dad gripped the wooden stick tightly. Then we'll fight him. I nodded. Hide behind the door first. When he comes in, we'll attack together. At the same time, a faint pushing sound came from outside the courtyard gate. The gate did not open. Outside was quiet for 2 seconds. Then Gao Qiqiang's cold voice came through the door. You dared curse my family's old master to death. Looks like the impression I left on you 10 years ago wasn't deep enough. My heart sank fiercely. The next second, a muffled sound came from outside the wall. He had climbed over the wall. The moment the sound of him landing appeared, hurried footsteps headed straight for the main room. I quickly pushed my mom behind me. Mom, get the kitchen knife. Xiaodian, take it. Don't rush forward. Just use it to scare him. My mother gritted her teeth, grabbed a kitchen knife from the kitchen, but both her hands were trembling terribly. My dad and I hid behind the door, one on each side. The footsteps drew closer and closer. 1 step, 2 steps. Each one felt as if it were stepping on my heart. In the end, my dad could not keep steady. Get out. With a furious roar, he swung the wooden stick and charged out. Dad, it was already too late. The wooden stick went straight for Gao Qiqiang's forehead. But Gao Qiqiang had been prepared long ago. He abruptly raised his collapsible baton and blocked it with both hands. Bang! The wooden stick stopped less than a finger's width from between his brows. Gao Qiqiang grinned. That's it. The baton instantly whipped back. Crack! My dad took a blow to the shoulder, and his entire arm dropped down on the spot. Ah! He staggered backward in pain. Dad! Rage rushed into my head all at once. I could no longer care about any ambush. Gripping the wooden stick, I charged out. Gao Qiqiang. He turned to look at me, his eyes like those of a mad dog about to devour someone. Your family's got some guts. Before he finished speaking, the baton had already smashed toward my head. Too fast. I instinctively raised the stick to block, but he suddenly twisted his wrist. The baton traced a black shadow through the air and viciously struck my ribs. Bang! Agonizing pain exploded. It was as if I had been hit by a car. My whole body flew sideways and crashed to the ground. A sweetness rose in my throat. Blood flowed down from the corner of my mouth. Xiaodian, my son. My mother's voice changed completely. Gao Qiqiang shook the baton in his hand and closed in on me step by step. Aren't you able to calculate? Did you calculate how you died today? I braced myself against the ground, wanting to stand up. But the area around my ribs felt as if it had been torn open, hurting so badly that my entire body trembled. Don't touch my son. My dad, his eyes red, pounced forward and hugged Gao Qiqiang tightly from behind. Run? Xiaodian, run. Old thing, you're courting death. Gao Qiqiang raised the baton and was about to smash it down at my dad's head. Stop. My mom charged out holding the kitchen knife. Her face was covered in tears, and a string of out-of-control curses burst from her mouth. Not a single sentence was complete, but they all carried the same meaning. Whoever dared touch her husband and son, she would fight them to the death. Gao Qiqiang did not take it head-on. He raised his knee and slammed it viciously into my dad's abdomen. My dad groaned and collapsed to his knees. Then Gao Qiqiang turned toward my mom, smiling ferociously. Don't be in such a hurry. Today, I'll send your whole family of 3 on the road together. looking at my father fallen on the ground, then looking at my mother, trembling with the knife in hand, yet not retreating a single step. The last trace of fear in my heart completely vanished. Only one thought remained. Kill him. No, I could not really kill him. At the very least, I could not let him die here. But first, I had to make him fall. Just as Gao Qiqiang was closing in on my mom, I reached out and grabbed a stone beside me, about the size of a fist. Enough. Gao Qiqiang, I suddenly shouted. He subconsciously turned his head. I used all the strength in my body and smashed the stone out. Bang! It struck the back of his head dead on. Gao Qiqiang's body suddenly stiffened. Blood flowed out from beneath his cap. He clutched his head, turned around, and fixed his eyes on me, opening his mouth to let out a curse filled with extreme fury. You? He wanted to raise the baton, but his arm no longer obeyed him. The next second, his vision went black, and he crashed straight to the ground. Bang! The courtyard instantly fell silent. I gasped for breath, my chest hurting as if it were about to split open. Mom! I forced myself to shout. Get rope. Tie him up quickly. Oh, okay. Only then did my mother come back to herself. She threw down the kitchen knife and rushed into the house. Soon, she ran out carrying a bundle of hemp rope. Dragging and tugging, she bound Gao Qiqiang's hands behind his back, then wrapped the rope around his body a full 7 or 8 times. From the way she moved, she looked as if she wished she could directly strangle him into the earth. Only after she tied the final dead knot did I breathe a sigh of relief. Dad, how are you? My dad slumped against the wall, his left arm hanging powerlessly, his forehead covered in cold sweat. I'm fine. His face was pale from the pain, but he still shook his head at me. I won't die. I clenched my teeth. Mom, call an ambulance. Then find something to stop Gao Qiqiang's bleeding. My mother's eyes immediately widened. We're saving him too. We can't let him die in our house. I stared at Gao Qiqiang on the ground. If he dies, it'll only bring us trouble. Let the law deal with him. Although my mother was unwilling, she still called emergency services. Afterward, she found cotton and alcohol. But the anger in her heart had not dissipated at all. As soon as she unscrewed the cap, she poured the alcohol directly onto the wound at the back of Gao Qiqiang's head. Ah! A scream suddenly rang out. Gao Qiqiang, who had just been unconscious, was actually jolted awake by the pain. He struggled violently. But the more he struggled, the tighter the ropes became. He could not move at all. Let me go. My mother clutched the empty alcohol bottle and glared at him fiercely. Try moving again. She trembled with anger, and another round of restrained rebuke burst out. Although she did not truly curse those ugly words aloud, the way she looked as if she wanted to pounce on him and bite off a piece of flesh was even more frightening. Gao Qiqiang was about to threaten her again. Suddenly, frantic footsteps came from outside the courtyard. Great Immortal Su, are you all right? Zhao Dabiao's voice came in first. Immediately after, the courtyard gate was slammed loudly. Open the door. Where's that lunatic Gao Qiqiang? My mother hurried over to open the gate. The moment the gate opened, Zhao Dabiao and Zhao Wenyan rushed in. Seeing Gao Qiqiang tied up on the ground, both of them froze at the same time. Then, seeing the blood at the corner of my mouth, Zhao Dabiao exploded on the spot. Benefactor. He swept his gaze around, grabbed the wooden stick on the ground, and charged toward Gao Qiqiang. His mouth erupted with a string of furious curses, clearly intending to strike for me with deadly force. Stop! I hurriedly shouted to halt him. Dabiao, I'm not dead yet. Huh? Zhao Dabiao abruptly stopped and turned to look at me. Benefactor, you're not dead? As soon as the words left his mouth, he himself realized something was wrong and raised a hand to slap himself. No, that's not what I meant. I wasn't hoping you were dead. This mouth of mine. I was just so anxious I got confused. Zhao Wenyan shoved him aside. Get lost, don't make things worse. He quickly came to my side. Great Immortal, where are you hurt? My ribs. I lifted my shirt. The area around my ribs had already turned black and purple. Zhao Dabiao took one look, and his eyes turned red. He turned around and kicked Gao Qiqiang. You really dared to strike to kill. Enough. I stopped him coldly. The law enforcement officers will be here soon. The old account from 10 years ago, plus today's armed break-in and assault, will be enough for him to suffer. Only then did Zhao Dabiao stop. I immediately pressed. When you came over, did you alert the Gao family? No. Zhao Wenyan answered at once. We came by a detour. We were afraid the Gao family might get the news and rush over first to snatch him away. That's good. That was exactly what I was truly worried about. In our eyes, Gao Qiqiang was a desperate fugitive. But in the eyes of the Gao family, he was a ruthless man standing up for the clan. Once they rushed over as a group, things would only become even more troublesome. Fortunately, before long, the piercing sound of sirens rang out outside the courtyard. More than a dozen law enforcement officers rushed into the yard. Everyone stepped back. The suspect is here. The instant I saw them, my tense body finally loosened. It was over. Gao Qiqiang was subdued on the spot. When the silver handcuffs snapped onto his wrists, he was still staring fixedly at me. Su Tian, this isn't over. Leaning against the wall, I looked at him coldly. For you, it really isn't over. The debt from 10 years ago, plus today's debt, go inside and repay them slowly. He still wanted to struggle, but the law enforcement officers pressed him down directly. Afterward, my parents and I were sent to the hospital together. As for the Gao family, by the time they received the news and arrived at the Su residence in groups, we had long since left Qingshan village. Only later did I hear that old Master Gao, dragging half his life back from the hospital, heard that Gao Qiqiang had been arrested and immediately rolled his eyes back, fainting once again on the spot. After he woke up, his body had completely collapsed. Yet at 11:30 on the third night, he suddenly became energetic. He said he was hungry. He drank millet porridge and, despite his family's attempts to stop him, even sipped 2 mouthfuls of liquor. Everyone in the Gao family understood. This was the last flicker before death. Old Master Gao leaned against the Grandmaster chair and called every member of the family before him one by one. Qiqiang has been ruthless since he was young. In the past, perhaps he could have made something of himself. But what era is this now? With his way of doing things, something was bound to happen sooner or later. Someone was unconvinced. Grandpa, are we just supposed to let this matter go? Old Master Gao lifted his eyelids. With just one glance, that person lowered his head. The debt from 10 years ago is being repaid today. It hurts me that he was arrested. But he wasn't wronged. The old man panted a few times, his voice growing lower and lower. That young man from the Su family is not simple. After I die, none of you are allowed to provoke him again. Do you hear me? No one dared answer. He suddenly slapped the armrest. I'm asking you, did you hear me? We heard. The crowd could only lower their heads. Gao Qiqiang's father was no exception. Only then did old Master Gao lean back against the chair again. I know you're unwilling. But even if you're unwilling, endure it for me. If you provoke the Su family again, sooner or later, the Gao family will be destroyed in your hands. At midnight, the old clock on the wall struck. Old Master Gao's eyelids dropped. He mumbled a few fragments of old memories, and then he lost all sound forever. Cries and wails instantly spread through the entire Gao household. And at that time, I was lying in Linchuan City People's Hospital. 2 fractured ribs. I had just finished treatment and had also cooperated with the law enforcement officers in giving my statement. The ward quieted down again. I stared at the ceiling and exhaled a long breath. Gao Qiqiang was finished. 10 years ago, he was suspected of causing serious injury and then fled. Now, he had broken into my home carrying a weapon and committed assault. The evidence, witnesses, and weapon were all there. It was almost impossible for him to get away. But this matter had also completely cut off our family's path back to Qingshan village. Old Master Gao could still suppress the Gao family before he died. But after his death, who knew whether a second Gao Qiqiang would appear? Continuing to stay there would mean gambling with my parents' lives. We can't go back. I made my decision. Fortunately, I still had that bank card containing 500,000. This money was enough for our family to temporarily establish ourselves in the city. The room door was suddenly pushed open. A head poked in first. Hee hee, great immortal. The moment I heard that laugh, I knew who it was. Come in. Zhao Wenyan carried in some late-night food, bending at the waist as he slipped into the ward. I just want to see Uncle Su. The doctor said it's a shoulder fracture, and the surgery went very smoothly. As long as he rests properly afterward, there won't be any major lasting problems. That's good. Only then did I finally feel relieved. From Qingshan village to the hospital, Zhao Wenyan had been following along the entire time. Registration, payment, getting medicine, buying food. All the errand-running work had been covered by him alone. I knew he had his own motives. But when a person was at their most difficult moment, I knew very clearly who was willing to truly put in effort. Brother Zhao, thank you for the trouble. Brother Zhao. His entire person brightened up, and he rubbed his hands while smiling nonstop. No trouble at all. Great immortal. Being able to do things for you is my good fortune. He opened the food containers. Pork rib soup and greens. They're all light. The doctor said you injured your ribs, so you need nourishment, but it can't be too greasy. He picked up a spoon. It's inconvenient for you. Shall I feed you? I raised my right hand and waved it in front of him. It's my ribs that are broken, not my hands. Right. But there really is something I need your help with. Zhao Wenyan immediately patted his chest loudly. Just give the order. Help me rent a place near the hospital. He froze for a moment. I continued. We can't go back to Qingshan village for now. After my parents are discharged, we'll stay in the city first. The place doesn't need to be too nice. Clean, safe, and move-in ready will do. Understood. Zhao Wenyan did not ask further. He got up and was about to leave. I'll go look for one right now. Wait. I called him back. Don't be afraid to spend money. Location and safety are most important. He turned back and smiled. Great immortal, don't worry. I'll make sure it's handled beautifully. After saying that, he quickly left the ward. Watching his back, I already had a judgment in my heart. This man was smooth, thick-skinned, and he might not always be particular about how he did things. But he was decisive enough, clever enough, and knew when to pick a side. Keeping him around to run errands might truly be useful. The door was pushed open again. My mother came in carrying warm water. Her eyes were still red. Shouting on, does the wound still hurt? It doesn't. As soon as I said that, she glared at me. You think your mother is stupid? Your face is that pale, and you still say it doesn't hurt. I held her hand. It's really nothing serious. I'll be fine after resting for a while. I've already asked Zhao Wenyan to rent a place. Once you and Dad are discharged, we'll stay in Linchuan. We won't go back to Qingshan village anymore. My mother lowered her head and said nothing. That was the place where she had lived for most of her life. How could she possibly bear to suddenly leave now? But after a few seconds, she still nodded. Then let's go. As long as our family is alive, it's the same wherever we live. My father walked in with a cane, his shoulder wrapped in thick plaster. Your mother is right. We can't stay in that place anymore. He sat down beside the bed. When my injury heals, I'll look for work in the city. Construction sites, warehouses, moving goods, anything will do. I still have strength. I won't let you go hungry. My nose suddenly stung. You're already 50. What goods are you still trying to move? My dad widened his eyes. What? Looking down on your father? No. I smiled. What I mean is, leave the matter of making money to me from now on. You? Yes, me. I touched the bank card in my pocket. It was time to tell them about the 500,000. Gao Qiqiang's break-in had made me thoroughly understand one truth. Merely being able to see fortune and misfortune was not enough. Merely being able to determine people's fates was also not enough. If someone truly put a knife against my family's throats, I had to have the strength to break that knife. Fortune, the eyes of King Yen. These were the only things I could grasp now. I had to become stronger. The faster, the better. At the time, however, I did not know that because of one sentence I had spoken before, another storm had already begun erupting inside the Jiang family. Later, Jiang Lian told me personally that night, he sat alone in the top-floor office of Jiang Group. The desk was covered with investigation materials. Every page pointed to the same person, Jiang Qin. That younger sister of his who had been living outside had secretly returned to the country as early as 2 years ago and had met with Jiang Guobin many times. Jiang Guobin had hidden it from everyone. Even more viciously, he had secretly transferred 3 overseas companies under his name into Jiang Qin's hands, then had those 3 companies change their shells and become overseas partners of Jiang Group. In just half a year, more than 3 billion had been transferred out. Jiang Group's total market value was only 18 billion. This was not favoritism. This was digging out the Jiang family's roots. After Jiang Lian finished reading the last page, he directly called his assistant. Keep investigating. The assistant lowered his voice. Mr. Jiang, what else should we investigate? All dealings between my father and Jiang Qin. Calls, meetings, funds, contracts. Don't miss a single detail. Also, Organize all evidence of their private transactions. The assistant was silent for a second. When are you planning to make your move? Jiang Lian stared at the documents on the desk, his gaze frighteningly cold. When the evidence is complete. Either I don't move at all. Once I do, I'll make sure they never get the chance to turn things around again. Only later did I learn that after Jiang Lian hung up on his father's call, he sat in his office for a long time. The words Su Tian had spoken that day echoed in his ears again and again. In the end, he grabbed his coat and made only one decision: to come see me. In less than half an hour, a black Rolls-Royce drove out of Jiang Group and headed straight for Qingshan Village. But at that time, I was still in the hospital. Zhao Wenyan had just brought late-night food. After eating, I leaned against the hospital bed and was calculating how to establish myself in Linchuan after being discharged, when the ward door suddenly opened. Xiaodian, my good nephew, Uncle finally found you. The moment I heard that voice, I could not even be bothered to lift my eyelids. Zhang Henian walked in carrying a fruit basket, his face full of smiles. He set the fruit basket down and came directly to the side of my bed. I just went to Qingshan Village and only then learned something this big happened to you. That Gao Qiqiang really is no good thing, actually daring to injure you like this. He cursed until his face was red and his neck thick, as if he wished he could avenge me on the spot. Unfortunately, I did not believe a single word. From the day Jiang Lian found Qingshan Village, I knew that this cheap uncle of mine would return sooner or later. I just had not expected him to come so quickly. How bad is the injury? What did the doctor say? His face was full of concern. I looked at him indifferently. Mr. Zhang, if you have something to say, just say it. The smile on his face stiffened for a moment. Then he immediately regained his enthusiasm. You child, why be so polite with your uncle? He pulled over a chair and sat down, lowering his voice. Last time, Mr. Jiang was able to find you because I recommended you. After Mr. Jiang returned, he was full of praise for you. 2 days ago, he personally made the decision to let me take charge of the cooperation with Jiang Group. At this point, his eyes were filled with unconcealable pride. At the end of the day, Uncle being able to turn things around this time is also partly thanks to you. He took out a bank card and pushed it in front of me. Xiaodian, we're all family, so I won't beat around the bush. You have ability. Continuing to stay in Qingshan Village would be too much of a pity. Uncle still has some connections in Linchuan. From now on, whatever you need, just ask. There's 10,000 yuan in the card. Consider it my sincerity. I glanced at the card and smiled. 10,000 yuan. And he wanted to erase everything from before? That day, standing in my house, how he humiliated my mother and how he belittled me. I remembered it all clearly. Take it back. Zhang Henian froze. Xiaodian, what do you mean by this? What I mean is, we're not close enough for this. The corner of his mouth twitched. The anger that had just surfaced in his eyes was quickly suppressed again. Immediately after, he put on a look of heartbreak. Xiaodian, Uncle's words were indeed a little harsh that day, but it was only because I hated to see iron fail to become steel. You graduated and returned home for 3 years, spending every day doing nothing. How could your parents not be anxious? I said those things because I wanted to stimulate you and make you pull yourself together. I didn't expect you to misunderstand Uncle's painstaking intentions. The more he spoke, the more immersed he became. It was as if back then, when he had trampled on the dignity of our entire family and showed off, it had not been for vanity, but to save me. I raised my hand and interrupted him. Are you done? Shouting on you. If you're done, leave. I stared at him and said each word clearly. My parents and I are not worthy of climbing up to your Zhang family. This time, the smile on Zhang Henian's face disappeared completely. He slowly stood up, and his eyes also turned cold. Su Tian, I came here out of goodwill to help you. Don't fail to appreciate kindness. Couldn't keep pretending anymore? Good. I liked watching people like this tear off their masks. At least it was more pleasing to the eye than fake affection. Zhang Henian straightened his suit and said coldly, I admit, you're pretty good at fooling people. Even someone like Mr. Jiang was coaxed around in circles by you. But don't forget who delivered this opportunity to you. You probably still don't know exactly what kind of relationship I have with Mr. Jiang. He looked down at me, his tone already carrying a threat. It's good for young people to have pride. But if you make your path too narrow, it'll be too late to regret it later. I was almost laughed to anger. If I had not warned him back then, he would probably already have entered the cremation furnace by now. In the end, not only did he not remember the favor, he even dared come before me and threaten me. Just as I was about to speak, a cold voice suddenly came from outside the door. Is that so? How come I didn't know there was some special relationship between Director Zhang and me? Zhang Henian's entire body shook. He turned around abruptly, and his face instantly went pale. Jiang Lian stood at the door, his expression ashen. Rao Ting followed behind him, still holding flowers and a fruit basket. Jiang, Mr. Jiang. Zhang Henian's voice changed. Jiang Lian looked at him coldly and walked straight past him. By the time he reached my bedside, the anger on his face had disappeared, replaced by a gentle smile. Mr. Su, I only just learned what happened here, so I rushed over overnight. I arrived somewhat late. Please forgive me. I was indeed somewhat surprised. Who was Jiang Lian? The helmsman of Jiang Group. In terms of age, he was my elder. In terms of status, the gap between us was like heaven and earth. Yet now, not only had he personally come, he was also being courteous to me to this degree. I understood. It was not because my name was Su Tian. It was because I had the eyes of King Yan. Only with ability did one have the qualification to make others look highly upon them. I straightened up and nodded to him. Boss Jiang, you're too courteous. Please sit. Good. Rao Ting put down the things, then turned to look at Zhang Henian, who was still frozen in place. Director Zhang, are you finished discussing your matter? Or do you still have some guidance to offer Mr. Su? I wouldn't dare. Absolutely not. Zhang Henian hurriedly waved his hands. Just now, when facing me, he had still been arrogant and overbearing. Now, he could barely straighten his waist. I only came to see my nephew. I've already said what I needed to say. It's his good fortune that Mr. Jiang can personally come to see him. If there's a chance another day, I'll definitely invite you to a meal. After saying this, he squeezed out another fawning smile at me. I ignored him. He did not dare stay any longer either, and turned to leave quickly. Looking at his back, I only found it ridiculous. Facing me, he dared to threaten me and put on the airs of an uncle. Facing Jiang Lian, even after being reprimanded, he still had to smile apologetically. This was reality. A kind person was easily bullied. If you were not strong enough, even relatives dared step on you. Once you possessed strength that made others wary, they would take the initiative to bend their waists. After Zhang Henian left, Jiang Lian spoke directly. Mr. Su, I have already had someone investigate the entire course of events. You did not hesitate to reveal heavenly secrets to remind Gao Shou to prepare his funeral affairs. That can already be considered more than benevolent. The Gao family not only failed to appreciate it, but even indulged Gao Qiqiang in attacking you. This was not a misunderstanding. This was repaying kindness with enmity. His voice grew colder and colder. I have already spoken with the Law Enforcement Bureau. Gao Qiqiang injured people with a weapon and had no regard for law or discipline. He should be sentenced however he should be sentenced. Whoever dares shield him, I will personally pursue responsibility. You recover in peace. I'll handle the rest. I looked at him and did not rush to refuse. It was not always best to owe as few favors as possible. Many times, relationships deepened through repeated exchanges. Moreover, Jiang Lian's death calamity half a year later was closely tied to my lifespan. I needed him to trust me. He also needed me to save his life. In that case, being tied together more tightly was not a bad thing for either of us. Then I'll have to trouble Boss Jiang. Mr. Su, you're too serious. After that, we talked quite a bit. Jiang Lian did not look down on me because I was young, and I was not overly timid because of his status. Time soon reached 1 in the morning. He glanced at the time and rose to take his leave. But when he reached the door, he stopped again. Mr. Su, I have one more proposal. Please speak. After you're discharged, how about coming to Jiang Group? I lifted my head and looked at him. He did not beat around the bush and directly laid out the terms. The position would be my personal consultant. You wouldn't need to clock in usually, nor would you need to participate in the company's specific affairs. Monthly salary of 100,000. The year-end bonus and dividends would not be less than 1 million. Housing and a car would all be provided by the company. Standing beside him, Rao Ting's eyes changed. Jiang Lian continued. If you feel the conditions are unsuitable, you can state your terms directly. As long as I can do it, everything can be discussed. A monthly salary of 100,000. and a year-end bonus of 1 million. If it were an ordinary university graduate, they probably would have agreed long ago. But I did not, because I knew very clearly that once I nodded, the relationship between Jiang Lian and me would change. I would go from being his partner to his subordinate. That was not what I wanted. I appreciate Boss Jiang's goodwill, but I'm used to freedom and don't like being tied down by a position. It's quite good for us to maintain our current relationship. Rao Ting looked at me in surprise. She probably could not understand how a young man from a mountain village like me had the grounds to refuse such conditions. A trace of disappointment also flashed through Jiang Lian's eyes. But very quickly, that disappointment turned into admiration. Understood. It was Jiang who was presumptuous. But my promise remains valid forever. As long as Mr. Su is willing, the doors of Jiang Group will always be open to you. I smiled. Thank you. If Boss Jiang has need in the future, you may also look for me at any time. It's settled then. It's settled. After they left, the ward became quiet again. Later, Rao Ting told me that in the elevator, she really could not hold back and asked Jiang Lian a question. Mr. Jiang, is he really worth such a high price from you? From what I see, aside from being steadier than others his age, he doesn't seem particularly special. Those fortune tellers have always been good at talking. Shouldn't you be a little more cautious? Jiang Lian only asked her one thing. If when you had just graduated, someone gave you a monthly salary of 100,000 and another 1 million at year-end, could you refuse? Rao Ting fell silent. After a while, she answered honestly. I couldn't. That is the difference. But refusing a high salary doesn't necessarily mean he has real ability. That's right. Then why are you still? Because what he said has already helped me resolve a major problem. Sometimes, the process isn't important. If the result is right, that's enough. Rao Ting still wanted to ask further. But Jiang Lian did not explain anymore. He only instructed her. When you have time in the future, come to the hospital more often to see Mr. Su. Building a good relationship with him will not harm you. Mr. Jiang, what do you mean by that? Nothing in particular. I just think the two of you are close in age and rather suitable. Rao Ting's face turned red on the spot. I only want to work properly. I haven't thought about such things. You really haven't thought about it? No, she answered very quickly. But when the elevator doors opened and Jiang Lian walked out first, she stood behind him and watched his back for a long time. The person she liked had never been me. It was the man she had always looked up to, yet never dared approach. It was just that she had hidden that affection too deeply. When the two of them arrived at the underground parking lot, Zhang Henian actually had not left yet. He was waiting beside the Rolls-Royce. Clearly, he was waiting for Jiang Lian. Jiang Lian's face darkened on the spot. Director Zhang, was what I said just now not clear enough? Zhang Henian quickly went up to him, a fawning smile appearing on his face once more. Mr. Jiang, you've misunderstood. I stayed behind because there is a very important matter I must tell you in person. Speak. I'll give you 1 minute. Zhang Henian gritted his teeth. The next second, he suddenly put on the appearance of someone ready to place righteousness above family loyalty. Mr. Jiang, I must confess to you. Su Tian isn't some master at all. He's a fraud. Jiang Lian narrowed his eyes. What did you say? At that moment, Zhang Henian's legs had already begun to tremble. But he still forced himself to continue. 1,000 mistakes and 10,000 mistakes are all my fault. At the beginning, I was possessed by greed and delusion and led you to Qingshan village. I also helped Su Tian put on a mystical act before you. My younger sister kept begging me, and I softened for a moment. That's why I joined them in deceiving you. These days, I've been living in fear every day. But paper can't wrap fire. Even if you want to punish me today, I accept it. I only ask to have a clear conscience. He spoke with passionate righteousness, as if he truly saw himself as an upright gentleman whose conscience had awakened. Unfortunately, he had underestimated Jiang Lian. Even more, he had underestimated what exactly I had said at our first meeting. Jiang Lian stared at him and asked only 3 words. What about Jiang Qin? What? I'm asking you, what is the matter with Jiang Qin? Zhang Henian froze on the spot. He had no idea who Jiang Qin was. Much less did he know that hidden behind this name was the Jiang family's darkest secret. Jiang Qin. He stammered and could not even form a complete sentence. Looking at him, Jiang Lian understood completely. Get lost. Just 1 word. There was no furious roar, yet it frightened Zhang Henian until his face turned deathly pale. Jiang Lian turned and got into the car. The Rolls-Royce quickly drove out of the parking lot. Zhang Henian stood where he was, his whole body seeming to have been drained of strength, and he collapsed to the ground. He raised his hand and slapped himself hard twice. His mouth kept spewing curses, cursing himself for being stupid and also cursing himself for why he had done something so unnecessary. Unfortunately, it was too late. Originally, in my eyes, he was only a small character not worth wasting time on. But he just had to actively seek death. Since he wanted to stomp me into the mud, then he could not blame anyone if he fell from a high place first. And just as Zhang Henian was stopping Zhang Lian, I was staring at the system panel before my eyes, my whole body turning cold. Lifespan, 50 years. The next second, the number suddenly became 10 years. I abruptly sat upright. Before I could react, 10 years jumped back to 50 years. Immediately after, it dropped again. 10 years. 50 years. 10 years. 50 years. The number jumped repeatedly several times before finally stabilizing. 50 years. I stared fixedly at the panel, my heart beating faster and faster. What's going on? The system gave no answer. But lifespan could not possibly change for no reason. At present, there was only one person most deeply bound to me by cause and effect. Jiang Lian. Did something happen to him? I grabbed my phone. If Jiang Lian died, my 50-year lifespan might instantly shrink. 3 years. I had waited bitterly for 3 years before finally obtaining the eyes of King Yen. After finally crawling back from the edge of death, I absolutely would not allow anyone to push me back again. The call connected quickly. Hello, Mr. Su? Jiang Lian's voice was still calm. It's so late. You haven't rested yet. I gripped the phone tightly and asked directly. Boss Jiang, after you left the hospital, did anything happen? The other end of the line suddenly went quiet. It was only quiet for 1 or 2 seconds, but it instantly made me alert. He was hiding something from me. Very quickly, he laughed. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Su. Everything is normal on my end. Really? Of course. His answer was watertight, but I could hear it. His attitude had changed. The courtesy remained, but the trust had diminished by 1 layer. I did not continue pressing. Since nothing happened, then I'm relieved. But if you have time tomorrow, I hope Boss Jiang can come to the hospital again. There are some things I want to discuss with you in person. Jiang Lian was silent for a moment. All right. See you tomorrow. The call ended. I looked at the panel. My lifespan was still 50 years, but there was not the slightest ease in my heart. Now, I had roughly guessed the reason why my lifespan kept changing back and forth. It was not that Jiang Lian had encountered danger. It was that he had wavered. If he believed me, then half a year later, he would avoid the death calamity according to my warning. He could live, and I could also keep these 50 years of lifespan. But if he did not believe me, there was only one outcome. He would die, and my lifespan would plummet with him. In other words, just now, someone had been sowing discord between us, and they had nearly succeeded. I leaned back against the hospital bed, my eyes turning cold little by little. You want to cut off my path to survival? Then let's see who shows their hand first tomorrow. All rise. Inside the courtroom, everyone stood up in unison. The presiding judge's deep and dignified voice slowly echoed through the solemn court. The defendant, Gao Qiqiang, disregarded national law and showed contempt for the lives, health, and residential safety of others. He carried out violent home invasion crimes on 2 separate occasions. His methods were brutal, the social harm extremely grave, and his personal danger extremely high. After this court's trial and investigation, at the defendant's seat, Gao Qiqiang wore prison clothes, his hands cuffed in front of him. 2 law enforcement officers stood guard at his sides. Yet even at this point, not much fear could be seen on his face. His eyes were lowered, his fingertips unconsciously rubbing the edge of the cold handcuffs, and there was even a faint hint of disdain hanging at the corner of his mouth. In the gallery behind him, 7 or 8 members of the Gao family gathered together. Some were grief-stricken, some were angry, but most of all, there was resentment toward me. Xiangzi only acted impulsively and made this mistake because he was standing up for our Gao family. An elderly Gao family member with a face full of wrinkles had red eyes. In just a few words, he turned Gao Qiqiang into a good child who valued loyalty and would risk everything for his family. It's all that beast Su Tian's fault. Beside him, a stocky man clenched his fists and cursed through gritted teeth. First, he cursed the old master to death, leaving our Gao family without its backbone. Now he's caused Xiangzi to be imprisoned too. This debt absolutely cannot just be left like this. Someone hesitated for a moment and reminded them quietly. But before the old master died, he repeatedly instructed us not to provoke Su Tian again. The old master also said that kid was very sinister. So what if he's sinister? The stocky man abruptly turned his head, his eyes full of ferocity. Are you still a man of the Gao family or not? I'll put my words here today. Xiangzi cannot suffer for nothing. That Su bastard must die. If anyone gets scared, then after you go back, erase your own name from the Gao family genealogy. After these words were spoken, the Gao family members immediately fell silent. None of them dared argue anymore. Seeing this scene from the defendant's seat, Gao Qiqiang even had the mood to give them a reassuring look. He felt that he was certain to win. All these years, he had been on the run outside. He did not dare say he was proficient in anything else, but as for what penalties corresponded to various crimes, he believed he had figured them out clearly. Although the disturbance he had caused this time was not small, he had not actually killed anyone. According to his judgment, the absolute limit would be 20 years. As long as he behaved well after entering prison and fought for a few sentence reductions, perhaps he could come out in a dozen or so years. At that time, he would still be a resounding tough man. As for me and my family, Gao Qiqiang had already begun calculating in his heart how, after his release, he would settle this debt bit by bit. Thinking of this, he could not even help yawning. But in the next second, the presiding judge's voice suddenly grew heavier. After comprehensively considering all criminal facts, subjective malignancy, and the degree of social harm of defendant Gao Qiqiang, this court holds that the circumstances of his crimes are extremely vile and the consequences extremely serious. In accordance with the relevant provisions for strict and severe punishment during the special campaign against organized crime and local gangs. Every word fell like a heavy hammer. The disdain on Gao Qiqiang's face finally faded somewhat. The presiding judge paused briefly, then read the final sentence. With approval from the Supreme People's Court, defendant Gao Qiqiang is sentenced to death, to be carried out immediately. Deprivation of political rights for life. Boom. Gao Qiqiang's mind instantly went blank. His body froze where it was, his pupils violently contracting. That faint, barely visible smile at the corner of his mouth also completely disappeared at this moment. Death penalty? Impossible. That's impossible. His face turned deathly pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. His earlier arrogance and calm vanished without a trace. I didn't kill a single person. At most, I should get 20 years. What right do you have to sentence me to death? This is a wrongful sentence. Gao Qiqiang suddenly began struggling violently. The handcuffs clattered loudly as he pulled at them. The two law enforcement officers immediately stepped forward and firmly pressed down on his shoulders from both sides. But he still refused to accept this result. I want to appeal. I don't accept this. I want to appeal. The presiding judge looked at him coldly. The facts of this case are clear, the evidence is conclusive, and all procedures have already been completed. This judgment is final. You no longer have the right to appeal. The presiding judge raised the gavel and brought it down heavily. Bang! The dull sound spread throughout the courtroom, completely shattering Gao Qiqiang's last shred of fantasy. At 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, the criminal Gao Qiqiang will be escorted to the execution ground, where the death sentence will be carried out. Court is adjourned. Gao Qiqiang went completely mad. Let go of me. You can't kill me. I didn't kill anyone. I don't want to die. Gao Qiqiang, who had just felt that the advantage was on his side, was now crying and howling like a homeless dog. But no matter how he struggled, he could not break free from the control of the two law enforcement officers. He could only be forcibly dragged out of the courtroom. Even after his shrill screams had completely disappeared, the members of the Gao family still had not recovered from their shock. How could this happen? Didn't they say it would be 20 years at most? How did it suddenly become eating a peanut? Xiangzi, a middle-aged man, cried out in grief. He was Gao Qiqiang's father. Having heard with his own ears that his son would be executed tomorrow, he seemed as if all the strength in his body had been drained away, and he collapsed limply into his seat. At this moment, Regret finally grew in his heart. When Gao Qiqiang was young, every time he came back from a fight outside, not only had he never scolded him, he would even praise his son for having blood in his veins, for being like a real man. He had always told Gao Qiqiang that a person must not be weak. If someone punched you once, you had to return 10 punches. Only when your fists were hard enough would no one dare bully you. But he had never imagined that these ideas he had personally instilled in his son would, in the end, push him step by step toward the execution ground. If only he had taught him properly back then. If only, the first time Gao Qiqiang caused trouble, he had not praised him. If only. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in this world. Some mistakes could be fixed, but some roads, once taken wrong, would never again offer a chance to turn back. The next day, Jiang Lian and I met again. He still wore a smile, and his attitude also appeared very warm. But I still keenly sensed that between us, there was now a faint, almost imperceptible distance. However, none of that mattered anymore, because the moment he walked into the ward, I had already seen new information with the eyes of King Yen. Name, Jiang Lian. Fortune, 0. Remaining lifespan, 7 days. Cause of death, 7 days later at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, he will die in a car accident deliberately engineered by his half-sister, Jiang Qing. When I saw that line of text, my heart almost skipped a beat. 7 days. Yesterday, it had still been 180 days. In just one night, Jiang Lian's lifespan had actually plunged from half a year to 7 days. This was the first time since I obtained the eyes of King Yin that I had seen lifespan information change so drastically. On the surface, I showed nothing unusual, but deep down, stormy waves had already risen in my heart. I had originally thought that the death information seen by the eyes of King Yin was some kind of fixed and unchanging fate. Now it seemed I had thought of everything too simply. Fate had never been a straight line. Any tiny choice could alter the final result. A miss by a hair could lead to an error of 1,000 miles. Before this, whether it was the village chief or Gao Shou, I had not truly intervened in their life and death, so their endings had not changed much. But Jiang Lian was different. Not only had I actively entered the game, I had also absorbed the fortune from his body. From that moment on, the cause and effect between the two of us had already become tightly entangled. My actions would affect his fate, and his life and death would also affect my lifespan. Perhaps this was the backlash one had to bear for interfering with another person's fortune and destiny. Mr. Su, Jiang Lian sat beside the hospital bed, his gaze carrying a bit of scrutiny. Is there something on your mind? His form of address had not changed. His tone was still polite, but that feeling of deliberately keeping distance was already very obvious. Before my eyes, the words remaining lifespan, 7 days, kept flashing. After a moment of silence, I still decided to speak. I lifted my head, my expression more solemn than ever before. Boss Jiang, do you believe me? The smile on Jiang Lian's face immediately faded somewhat. He frowned. He had probably thought again of what happened in the parking lot last night, as well as my phone call that had come at too coincidental a time. Mr. Su, you jest. If I did not believe you, I would not have personally invited you yesterday to become my private consultant. If there is anything, please speak directly. As long as it is something I can do, I will certainly have no objection. There was nothing wrong with those words on the surface, but I knew he was brushing me off. I took a deep breath. Do you still remember what I said when you first went to Qingshan village? Within half a year, you would face a life and death calamity. Jiang Lian narrowed his eyes slightly. What does Mr. Su mean? The calamity has moved forward. I stared into his eyes and said each word clearly. 7 days from now, at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you will die in a man-made car accident. Jiang Lian's expression finally changed, but it was not fear. It was disappointment. There was even a trace of impatience. Before I could continue speaking, he stood up. It seems Mr. Su did not rest well last night. It just so happens that I still have some urgent matters to handle, so I won't disturb you further. When I have time later, I'll come again. I looked at him and did not try to make him stay. In that case, Boss Jiang, please attend to your matters first. He nodded slightly, turned, and left the ward. Routing immediately followed him out. The instant the ward door closed, Jiang Lian in the corridor lowered his face. It's about what I predicted before. He really used my life and death as an issue again. Rao Ting looked filled with righteous indignation. Mr. Jiang, these Jianghu swindlers are all the same. Give him 3 points of color, and he'll dare open a dye house. You were too polite to him before. That's why he thinks you're easy to deceive. Zhang Lian looked back at the ward, clear disgust showing in his eyes. Zhang Henian is no good thing. I didn't expect his nephew to be no better. Again and again, he curses me to die. Does he really think I, Zhang Lian, have no temper? The corners of Rao Ting's mouth lifted slightly, as if she were delighted that her boss had finally seen through the fraud. Mr. Jiang is wise. The two of them walked side by side toward the elevator. Halfway there, Zhang Lian seemed to suddenly remember something. By the way, you mentioned before that there was once someone you secretly loved. Later, because your family opposed it, he went abroad. Has he come back now? Rao Ting froze for a moment. She seemed not to have expected Zhang Lian to suddenly ask about this matter. Not yet. She lowered her head, her cheeks turning slightly red. That appearance, intellectual, yet carrying a hint of youthful innocence, caused several male patients in the corridor to glance over repeatedly. One young man who had just finished surgery and still walked a little awkwardly was even so absorbed in looking that he accidentally pulled at his wound. Holy crap, he screamed, his face turning green. The friend beside him jumped in fright and hurriedly supported him toward the treatment room, all while cursing him for never learning his lesson. Zhang Lian looked at Rao Ting, his tone softening. In a person's life, one will always meet a few people who are hard to forget. But the past is ultimately the past. What matters most is cherishing what is in front of you. Do not delay your whole life for someone who only exists in your memories. As he spoke, his gaze seemed to sweep over Rao Ting's face unintentionally. Rao Ting's face became even redder. Mr. Jiang is right. I will definitely remember that. I was only saying it casually. The elevator doors opened. Zhang Lian stepped in first. When they arrived downstairs, he again seemed to say casually, I'm going to meet an old friend later. It's not very convenient to bring someone along. You've worked hard today too. I'll have the driver take you back first. No need. Rao Ting refused subconsciously, then seemed to realize her reaction had been too strong and hurriedly added, Mr. Jiang, what I mean is, there's no need to trouble the driver. I can just take a taxi back by myself. Fine. Be careful on the road. Thank you, Mr. Jiang. A few minutes later, a black Rolls-Royce drove out of the underground parking lot. The car soon disappeared from the hospital entrance. From outside, it was impossible to tell who was sitting inside. Standing by the roadside waiting for a ride, Rao Ting clearly breathed a sigh of relief when she saw the Rolls-Royce leave. Immediately after, she took out her phone from her pocket. Her fingers trembled slightly. After a brief hesitation, she dialed a foreign number. The instant the call connected, her expression became excited and complicated. But she did not know that Zhang Lian, who should have been sitting inside the Rolls-Royce, was at that very moment standing behind the glass doors of the hospital outpatient hall. Through the glass, he watched her make the call expressionlessly. With one arm suspended in a sling, I silently walked up behind him. Then I extended my still movable hand and lightly patted his shoulder. Boss Jiang, are you all right? Through the reflection in the glass, I could clearly see his unusually silent face. He did not turn around. He only let out a bitter laugh. What do you think? If not for Mr. Su arranging this little play, I'm afraid that no matter what, I never would have imagined that the person who had followed by my side for so many years was actually a chess piece planted beside me by Jiang Qin. He closed his eyes. His voice was filled with exhaustion. Human hearts truly are hard to fathom. That was right. Everything that had just happened in the ward had been discussed in advance. Zhang Lian's coldness was fake. The conflict Rao Ting saw was also fake. Even my saying that he would die in a car accident 7 days later was deliberately said for her to hear. Last night, after Zhang Lian left the hospital, I thought it over and over, but still sent him a message. After some probing, only then did he tell me what had happened in the parking lot. After learning that Zhang Henian had once tried to drive a wedge between us, I immediately ruled out the possibility that he was the key person behind the scenes. Zhang Henian certainly harbored evil intentions, but he did not have the ability to change Zhang Lian's death calamity. The real key was always Jiang Qin. The car accident that should originally have happened half a year later had suddenly moved up to 7 days later. There was only one explanation. Someone beside Jiang Lian was leaking information. That person had told Jiang Qin both the prophecy I had made and the importance Jiang Lian placed on me. Jiang Qin worried that delay would bring unexpected changes, so she decided to return to the country early and move the plan from half a year later to 7 days later. At the time, however, Jiang Lian had been half believing, half doubting my conjecture. Thus, today's little play came about. We deliberately fell out in front of Rao Ting. Jiang Lian deliberately showed disgust toward me. Afterward, he used emotional matters to disturb Rao Ting's state of mind, and finally pretended to leave by car. If Rao Ting truly had a problem, then after confirming Jiang Lian had left, she would definitely contact the person behind the scenes at the first possible moment. Facts prove that we had bet correctly. I looked through the glass at Rao Ting outside and could not help sighing. As expected, the prettier a woman is, the better she is at deceiving people. Boss Jiang, this time, you really gave your affection to the wrong person. I had not originally meant to gloat, but when these words fell into Jiang Lian's ears, they clearly stabbed him in the heart again. He turned his head and looked at me, his expression turning even uglier. Just then, his phone suddenly rang. Seeing the caller ID, Jiang Lian immediately answered. Speak. A man's voice came through the phone. Boss, the matter you asked us to investigate has results. During Rao Ting's overseas studies, she once maintained a very intimate relationship with Jiang Qin. According to the information we have, their relationship should have far exceeded that of ordinary friends. However, at that time, Jiang Qin had always concealed her true identity, so Rao Ting did not know that she was your younger sister. Jiang Lian's gaze grew colder and colder. The person on the phone continued reporting. In addition, we found that Jiang Qin secretly returned to the country the night before last. That same late night, she and Rao Ting entered Xinhua International Hotel together. The two did not leave the room for the entire night, and only departed one after another the next morning. We have already obtained the relevant surveillance footage and check-in records. After a brief silence, Jiang Lian finally spoke. Understood. Continue investigating. Do not alert the enemy. Understood. The call ended. Standing beside him, I was already dumbfounded from listening. I had originally thought Rao Ting had only been bought off by Jiang Qin. I had not expected the relationship between the two of them to be far more complicated than I imagined. Jiang Lian put away his phone, his expression somewhat unnatural. Mr. Su, whether you believe it or not, I truly did not understand her private life. Otherwise, I would not have failed to notice anything abnormal for so many years. I nodded thoughtfully. I understand. Everyone has their own secrets. Jiang Lian's expression eased slightly. But immediately after, I asked another question. However, is there a possibility she was actually making a two-way choice? The expression on Jiang Lian's face instantly stiffened. Later, Rao Ting told me everything that happened that day. That afternoon, after she left the hospital, she went to Shanghai Cafe. Inside a private room on the 25th floor, Jiang Qin was already waiting for her. Ting Ting, come sit. Jiang Qin wore a long black dress and exquisite makeup. She smiled as she stood, took Rao Ting's hand, and had her sit beside her. That gentle appearance would make anyone lower their guard. But Rao Ting did not. Her face was pale, and her palms were covered in sweat. Jiang Qin brushed Rao Ting's long hair aside for her and asked softly, What's wrong? Did Jiang Lian discover you? I don't know. Rao Ting bit her lip. Sister Qin, why don't we just forget it? Jiang Qin's hand stopped. Forget it. Stop fighting with Mr. Jiang. Rao Ting spoke faster and faster. You already have money. Why do you still have to provoke the Jiang family? I've followed Mr. Jiang for so many years. I understand him too well. Once he discovers us, neither of us will come to a good end. And today, he has clearly already started suspecting me. Jiang Qin stared at her and suddenly smiled. You're scared? I'm not scared. I just feel that. There is no just. Jiang Qin directly cut her off. My father is supporting me from behind, and I have already made arrangements inside Jiang Group. Once the time comes, the entire Jiang family will be mine. She leaned back against the sofa, her tone full of disdain. As for that Su Tian Jiang Lian found, he's nothing more than a small character pretending to be mysterious. Only that foolish elder brother of mine would turn to any doctor in a desperate illness. Hearing my name, Rao Ting became even more uneasy. But the way Su Tian looked at me today was very strange. He also said there was a mole beside Mr. Jiang. The smile on Jiang Qin's face faded. So I want out. Rao Ting gathered her courage. Sister Qin, I can return that 10 million to you. Let's stop here, all right? Return it to me? Jiang Qin slowly stood up. The next second, she grabbed Rao Ting by the hair and slapped her across the face. Slap. Rao Ting was struck so hard her face turned to the side, and her whole person was stunned. Sister Qin, you think this is a business deal? Jiang Qin dragged her by the hair and forcefully pulled her down to the floor. Back then overseas, who was it that cried and begged me, saying she would never betray me? It was you. Now that you've taken the money and done the work, you discover danger and want to run. She picked up the coffee on the table. Seeing her movement, Rao Ting's expression changed instantly. Sister Qin, don't. The coffee was poured down over her head. Rao Ting screamed and curled up, trying to hide, but Jiang Qin kicked her over. I was wrong. Sister Qin, I really was wrong. Rao Ting hugged Jiang Qin's leg, crying until her voice turned hoarse. Give me one more chance. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Only then did Jiang Qin stop. She crouched down, pinched Rao Ting's chin, and forced her to lift her face. Remember, you are not my friend. You are only a dog I placed beside Jiang Lian. Rao Ting trembled all over, but did not dare argue. Jiang Qin stared at the swelling on her face and warned coldly, go back and clean yourself up. Don't let my brother see any problem. If you ruin my plan, I'll make sure you won't even have the chance to regret it. Do you understand? I understand. Rao Ting nodded again and again. I will listen to whatever master says. Jiang Qin flung her away in disgust and turned to leave the private room. To Jiang Qin, Rao Ting had never been a lover. She was not even a person. She was only a tool that could be thrown away at any time. After getting into the car, Jiang Qin lit a cigarette. She looked out the window and sneered. My good elder brother actually knows to investigate the relationship between me and father. Looks like you're not so stupid as to be hopeless. But it doesn't matter. It's soon. The entire Jiang family will soon be mine. At that time, however, I knew nothing of this. I had just seen Jiang Lian off, then turned and went to the ward next door. My dad leaned against the head of the bed, his shoulder wrapped in thick gauze. The injury was not fatal, but if he wanted to recover, he would need to rest for at least some time. When he saw me, his first words were, Qingshan village, we probably can't go back. If we can't go back, then we won't. My mother handed him a cup of water. If the house is gone, we can find another. As long as everyone is fine, that's what matters. As long as the family is together, isn't living anywhere still living? My dad sighed and said nothing. He made it sound easy, but Qingshan village was, after all, the place where he had lived for most of his life. Now Gao Qiqiang had run into a severe crackdown and had eaten the heaviest peanut. The Gao family members would definitely put the debt on our heads. Going back now would be like delivering ourselves to their door. Uncle, have an apple. Zhao Wenyan sat beside him. After peeling an apple, he offered it to my dad with both hands. These past few days, he had been looking for housing, running procedures, and busying himself front and back. He really had put in no small amount of effort. My mother's impression of him had also changed. Little Zhao, I'll transfer the rent money to you later. Auntie, aren't you slapping my face by saying that? Zhao Wenyan hurriedly waved his hands. In the past, I was a bastard. I followed the wrong people and did no shortage of immoral things. Now I truly want to change. As he spoke, he dropped to his knees with a thud. Uncle, Auntie, if you don't dislike me, from now on, I'll treat you as my own father and mother. My dad was so frightened, he nearly sat up from the bed. Don't mess around. Hurry and get up. Uncle, I'm sincere. Sincere or not, it won't do. My dad's face darkened. We welcome it if you're willing to change. But don't mention recognizing us as family again. Zhao Wenyan was thick-skinned and did not feel embarrassed. He immediately stood up and stuffed the apple into my dad's hand. Fine. Since Uncle says not to mention it, I won't mention it. You eat first. The doctor said eating more fruit helps recovery. I glanced at him. This fellow was indeed clever. He knew that forcing it would not work, so he retreated at once. He could bend his back, lower his head, and even throw his dignity onto the ground to be stepped on. This kind of person, as long as he was given an opportunity, could make his way anywhere. As for whether he could truly be trusted, that still had to be seen. After accompanying my parents for a while, I left the ward. Jiang Lian's 7-day death calamity was still there. But the mole had already been pointed out by me. As long as he was not stupid, he should know how to investigate. There was no need for me to keep guarding him constantly. Besides, I had been lying in the hospital for so many days that my mouth was nearly tasteless enough to grow birds. Just as I walked to the outpatient hall, my stomach growled. There happened to be a fried chicken shop nearby. Grilled wings, hamburgers, fried chicken. The aroma kept drilling into my nose. It's not excessive for an injured person to eat a little fried chicken, right? I found myself an excuse and was just about to go in when a middle-aged man suddenly stopped a passerby. "Ma'am, have you seen my son?" His temples were graying, his eyes were full of bloodshot veins, and he was clutching a photograph in his hand. The passerby shook her head. He immediately chased after the next person. "Sir, please take a look. This child is 7 years old. He went missing a year ago. Have you seen him?" Still a shake of the head. One after another. No one stopped. In the end, it was as if he had completely lost his strength. He squatted on the ground, holding his head. "A year. Son, where exactly are you?" I subconsciously looked toward him. Familiar information instantly appeared. Name, Chao Dago. Fortune, 50. Remaining lifespan, 3 years. Cause of death, because his son was abducted and sold by his neighbor Hemin, and after searching fruitlessly for a long time, he developed severe depression and jumped into a river at 5 o'clock in the morning. My steps halted. 50 points of fortune. Jiang Lian only had 5 points. The man before me, wearing a cheap jacket and not even having shaved his beard clean, actually had 10 times Jiang Lian's fortune. Yet even such a person still had his son abducted. I quickly understood. Fortune could block accidents, but it could not block deliberate evil. However, today he had encountered me. Perhaps this was his fortune. I first went to buy 2 hamburgers, a portion of fried chicken, and a hot drink, then walked behind him. "Brother, eat something first." Chao Dagong lifted his head and stared at me blankly. "For me? Is there anyone else here?" I stuffed the bag into his hands. "Eat. If you collapse first, how are you going to keep looking for your child?" His lips moved, and his eyes instantly turned red. "Thank you. Truly thank you." He gripped the bag tightly, his shoulders trembling nonstop. The emotions he had suppressed for a whole year completely snapped at this moment. I did not rush him. After he recovered a little, I pointed at the photograph in his hand. "I think I've seen this child." Chao Dagong suddenly stood up. The hot drink fell to the ground, but he did not even bother to pick it up. "What did you say?" He grabbed my arm. "You've really seen my son? Don't get excited yet." I looked at the photograph and deliberately frowned. About half a month ago, when I went to Shizhou province for some business, I saw a boy who looked very similar to the one in the photo. "Where?" "I can't remember the exact location." I continued. "At the time, the child seemed to be asleep and was carried into a van by a woman." "A woman?" Chao Dagong's breathing became rapid. "What kind of woman?" "Not tall. A bit on the heavy side." "What about her face?" "I didn't see clearly." I paused, then threw out the most crucial clue. "However, I heard the man driving call her Sister Min." "Sister Min." Chao Dagong repeated those 2 words in his mouth. Suddenly, his whole body stiffened. "Hemin." I looked at him. "You know her?" "Is she about 1.5 meters tall, very fat, with a black mole on the left side of her face?" I pretended to recall for a few seconds. "Yes, that's her." Boom. Chao Dagong's eyes instantly turned red. "Impossible. How could it be her?" His mouth said impossible, but his fists clenched tighter and tighter. "My son liked her the most. She often took my son out to play. The day the child disappeared, she said she had gone back to her hometown." His words stopped there on their own. Because everything matched. The person most familiar with the child. The person most likely to take the child away. And on the very day the child disappeared, she just so happened to create an alibi. "Hemin." Chao Dagong suddenly roared and threw down the food before rushing outside. "Wait." I immediately chased after him. This man had already lost his reason. If I did not follow, forget taking the fortune, he might first send himself to prison. Number 36 Hepping Street. When we arrived, Hemin was sitting by the street eating sunflower seeds. A few neighbors were gathered nearby. Some were even discussing the Chow family's matter. Old Chow went out looking for his child again today. It's been a year. He's aged by decades. If you ask me, those human traffickers really deserve retribution. Heemin spat out the sunflower seed shell and sighed with feigned sorrow. This is all fate. I hope that child was sold to a good family. At least then he won't suffer. The people beside her immediately praised her. Sister Min really does have a kind heart. Who doesn't know you had the best relationship with the child's mother? In the past, you treated that child like your own. Heemin covered her chest, and her eyes reddened on command. It's all my fault. That day, I had originally promised to take the child to the amusement park, but then an urgent matter suddenly came up back home. If I hadn't left, maybe the child wouldn't have gone missing. She acted with sincere emotion. If not for seeing Chao Dagong's fate, perhaps even I would have believed her. The next second, Chao Dagong charged over. Heemin. He cursed loudly, his voice filled with killing intent. Everyone was startled. Heemin looked up and saw him, and her face changed instantly. She did not even ask a question before turning and running. This run was equivalent to admitting it directly. Chao Dagong went completely mad. It really was you. Give my son back. The neighbors were all stunned. What's going on? The child was abducted by Heemin. No way, right? If it wasn't her, why would she run? Heemin was obese and could not run quickly at all. Chao Dagong grabbed a brick from the roadside and raised his hand to throw it. Bang! The brick struck Heemin's thigh. She screamed and fell heavily to the ground. Chao Dagong pounced over and grabbed her collar. Where's my son? Talk. Heemin was still stubborn. I don't know. What does your son going missing have to do with me? Chao Dagong, if you dare hit me, I'll call the police right now. Call them. Chao Dagong punched her in the face. Even if I go to prison today, I'll kill you first. Just as his second punch was raised, I arrived behind him and grabbed his wrist. Enough. Chao Dagong turned his head and glared at me. You're stopping me? If you keep hitting her, she'll die. Someone like her deserves death. If she dies, what about your son? When this sentence fell, Chao Dagong's fist froze in midair. I stared at Heemin and directly took out my phone. Call the police now. If she won't talk, let the police investigate. Follow her calls, transfers, and travel records down the line. I don't believe they won't dig out that van. When Heemin heard this, all color drained from her face. I crouched in front of her. You'd better pray the child is still alive. Otherwise, don't even think about getting out again in this lifetime. Still being stubborn? Chao Dagong kicked her, roaring with red eyes. Talk. Where exactly is my son? Heemin fell to the ground and had not yet climbed up when Chao Dagong had already picked up another brick and gripped it tightly in his hand. My wife and I treated you like family. And you? You sold my son. His voice was trembling. More than a year. The couple had searched for more than a year. How many nights had the two of them held their child's photo and cried until dawn? A perfectly good family had been forcibly destroyed beyond recognition. And the culprit was right before their eyes. Heemin stared at the brick, her face turning pale. Yet with her mouth, she still refused to admit defeat. Are you crazy? Isn't it just a child? If he's gone, can't you just have another? If you really beat me to death, you'll have to go to prison too. Is it worth ruining the rest of your life for one child? The moment these words came out, the surroundings exploded. What do you mean, just have another? That's someone's biological son. That couple treated you so well, and you turned around and sold their child. How do you still have the face to say that? Call the police. Call the police immediately. Human traffickers like this must not be spared. Hurry up and say where the child is. The crowd pressed in tighter and tighter. Some pointed at Heemin and angrily scolded her, while others directly took out their phones. Heemin finally panicked. Because Chao Dagong had already raised the brick, his gaze so vicious it looked as if he truly wanted to perish together with her. Don't hit me. I'll talk. I'll tell everything. She held her head with both hands and screamed. At the time, I pretended to return to my hometown. After you relaxed your guard, I came back with Lu Guangping. He was the one driving the van. He was also the one who tricked the child into getting in. Chao Dagong grabbed her hair. And then, where was he sent? Out of the province. Heemin screamed from the pain. I really don't know exactly where he was sold. Everything afterward was handled by Lu Guangping. I only got 20,000. 20,000? Chao Dagong's hands were trembling. You sold my son for 20,000 yuan? I was muddle-headed for a moment. Heemin cried and shouted in explanation. Those children are all sold to families who can't have children. No one dies. Old Chow, spare me this once. Don't call the police. I'll give you all of that 20,000. Chow Dagong stared at her, then suddenly released his hand. Just as He Min breathed a sigh of relief, he turned and shouted to the crowd. Get rope. Tie her up. Several people immediately rushed forward and tied He Min up tightly. She struggled desperately. Chow Dagong, you can't call the police. I've already confessed. Do you want to ruin the entire second half of my life? Chow Dagong took out his phone, his voice frighteningly cold. What you ruined was my son, and the lives of my whole family. And you dare talk to me about the second half of your life? The call connected. He said only one sentence. I found the person who abducted my son. The law enforcement officers arrived quickly. In less than 5 minutes, 4 of them reached the scene. He Min still wanted to change her story, but the surrounding area was full of witnesses. Every word she had said just now had been recorded by people. She could not deny it. Before getting into the car, Chow Dagong suddenly broke free from the people beside him and rushed toward me. Before I could react, he had already knelt down. Mr. Su, bang. He kowtowed heavily. Thank you. Bang. Another one. Without you, I never would have found the person who hurt my son in this lifetime. By the time the third kowtow landed, there was already blood on his forehead. I hurriedly pulled him up. Find the child first. After he's brought back, we can talk about other things. Chow Dagong's lips trembled, and he nodded hard. All right. As long as my child can come back, this life of mine will be yours from now on. The police car quickly left with him and He Min. As the red and blue lights disappeared at the street corner, a series of notification sounds immediately rang out in my mind. Detected that the host has intervened in the impending calamity of a person bearing fortune. Chow Dagong's fate has already changed, drawing the target's fortune. 50 points of fortune devoured. The eyes of King Yin have been enhanced. My spirit lifted. 50 points was enough to enhance it. Next time, it probably would not be this cheap. But what I cared about more was what new ability the eyes of King Yin had gained. The answer soon appeared. Threads of fate have been unlocked. Threads of fate? I lifted my head and focused on the surroundings. The next second, the entire world changed. A father and son walked past me, and a crimson thread connected the two of them. That was blood relation. 2 vendors were arguing, and between them was a deep brown thread tangled together. That was old resentment. More passers-by were connected by faintly visible white threads. They merely brushed past each other, their ties so thin they were almost invisible. I smiled. Interesting. Before, I could only see a person's death calamity. Now, I could also see through the relationships between people. Enemy or friend. Sincerity or falsehood. I would know with one glance. The system panel immediately unfolded. Host, Su Tian. Fortune, 0 points. Lifespan, 50 years. Eyes of King Yin. Can see through the final death calamity of all living beings, the remaining time, and the identities of 2 key figures involved in the calamity. Threads of fate. Can see through the bonds of all living beings and judge relationships, as well as good and evil through the color of the threads. Every 100 points of fortune can be exchanged for 1 year of lifespan. I stared at the description of the eyes of King Yin. Originally, I could only see 1 key figure. Now, it had become 2. This enhancement was worth it. I did not rush back to the hospital. Instead, I observed the threads of fate along the street. Between husband and wife, most were pink. Cooperative relationships leaned silver. Grudges were brown. Loyalty was blue. Occasionally, a golden thread would flash by. That represented a benefactor. By the time I had figured out the general pattern, it was already past 8 at night. I hurried back to the hospital, thinking as I walked. What color would the thread between Jiang Lian and me be? He owed me a life. There should at least be a golden thread. As for Zhao Wenyan, if he had truly pledged himself to me, I should be able to see a blue thread. The ward was just ahead. I reached out and pushed the door open. Great immortal. Zhao Wenyan immediately came up to me, still holding a food container. You're finally back. I just bought pigeon porridge. It's still hot. He nimbly opened the container, and the fragrance spread at once. I did not look at the porridge. I was looking at him. A pale blue thread was connecting the two of us. Blue. Loyalty. I froze for a moment. Zhao Wenyan was actually truly loyal to me? Only a few days ago, I had publicly dealt with him. Not only did he not hate me, he instead followed me wholeheartedly. What exactly was this man thinking? Seeing that I kept silent, Zhao Wenyan hurriedly asked, Great Immortal, is it not to your taste? How about I buy something else? No need. I took the food container. It smells good. He immediately smiled. As long as you like it. Whatever you want to eat in the future, just give the order. I finally understood. It was not that he had no temper. He simply wanted too badly to climb upward. For the sake of advancement, he could forcibly change even his own anger and joy. This kind of person might not necessarily be a good man, but he could absolutely be used. As long as the blue thread remained, I would not fear his betrayal. All right, go back and rest early. Got it. Zhao Wenyan did not pester me and turned to leave. When he reached the door, he turned back again. Great Immortal, call me anytime if anything comes up. The door closed. Over the next few days, Zhao Wenyan remained at the hospital, buying food, running errands, picking up medicine. He was practically available whenever called. My parents were almost moved by him. If they had not still remembered what this fellow had done in Qingshan village before, they might truly have accepted him as a godson on the spot. And the more Zhao Wenyan worked, the more enthusiastic he became. Every time he left the ward, he could not suppress the smile on his face. Clearly, he felt that his performance had already been seen by me. In truth, that was indeed the case. However, I did not have time to keep observing him. Jiang Lian's 7-day death calamity was about to arrive. A car accident was easy to avoid. Just stay at home and do not get into a car. But the problem was, would the system acknowledge that? If the calamity was merely avoided temporarily, but not truly resolved, would death appear in another form? Lying on the hospital bed, I asked directly, System, if he avoids the car accident, does that count as breaking the calamity? There was no response. Does dealing with the mastermind behind the scenes count? Still no response. I exhaled. Fine. You won't give me an answer, huh? Then I'll find it myself. Aside from Jiang Lian, I also had to deal with the Gao family's trouble in Qingshan village. One thing after another. But before I could make a move, a result came first from the Gao family's side. Early the next morning, just as I opened my eyes, the system notification suddenly rang out. Detected that the host has intervened in the calamity of a person bearing karma. Gao Qiqiang's fate has changed. The target's karma is transforming. The host has obtained 70 points of fortune. I abruptly sat up. Gao Qiqiang, his karma could actually be transformed into fortune? Immediately after, the ward door was pushed open. Zhao Wenyan came in with a face full of excitement and shouted as soon as he entered. Great Immortal, something huge happened. Gao Qiqiang was executed. I looked at him. So quickly. Exactly. Zhao Wenyan leaned close to the bed and lowered his voice. I heard he might not necessarily have been sentenced to death at first, but he just happened to run into a severe crackdown. All the things he did in the past were dug up. Once the sentence came down, he was sent straight to the execution ground. As he spoke, he gave me a thumbs up. Evil gets what evil deserves. With this man dead, we've lost one major problem. I did not answer. The system prompt had not ended. Gao Qiqiang's soul has been seized by the messengers of the underworld. The host has obtained 7 judges' brush fragments. Gather 100 fragments to synthesize the judge's brush. My breath caught. Judge's brush? This thing could really be synthesized? If ordinary people bearing fortune could help me strengthen the eyes of King Yin, then people burdened with karma not only provided fortune, but could also drop judge's brush fragments. One gain had become 2. It seemed that in the future, when I encountered evil people, I could not simply hide from them. Some muddy waters had to be waded through. Great Immortal? Seeing that I was silent, Zhao Wenyan asked carefully, Are you worried about the Gao family taking revenge? They will definitely take revenge. I looked at him. Although Gao Qiqiang is dead, the Gao family is still there. The smile on Zhao Wenyan's face stiffened. Then what should we do? Don't mind them for now. I lifted the quilt and got out of bed. Boss Zhang's calamity is right before us. First, we keep the living alive. Then we deal with those who are seeking death. 7 days passed quickly. My dad and I had both recovered more or less, and our discharge procedures went smoothly. My mother had rented a place in advance and was waiting for us to move in. After settling the 2 elders, I prepared to go see Jiang Lian. This time, I brought Zhao Wenyan with me. Yesterday, I had asked him to return to Qingshan village and secretly bring back the statue of the Fifth Path Lord. If the villagers discovered this matter, he would inevitably be surrounded. But he did not say a single unnecessary word and really brought the statue back. Now, the blue thread on his body was already twice as thick as before. It was time to give him some benefits. Come with me today to see Boss Jiang. The moment I said this, Zhao Wenyin nearly jumped up. Really? Great Immortal, don't worry. I promise to speak less and do more. I absolutely won't embarrass you. As soon as we left, the car sent by Jiang Lian had already arrived. Half an hour later, the car stopped outside a manor in the suburbs. Zhao Wenyin was dumbfounded the moment he got out. This place, how much must it be worth? Shut up, I reminded him. Speak less, watch more. Understood. He immediately stood straight, holding the statue of the Fifth Path Lord with both hands as he followed behind me. Jiang Lian had already been waiting at the entrance. Mr. Su. He came forward to greet me, but his gaze fell on Zhao Wenyin. After only 2 glances, he lowered his voice. This person doesn't look very settled. If you keep him by your side, you'd best be careful. I swept my gaze over the threads of fate. Between Zhao Wenyin and me was a deep blue thread. Between Jiang Lian and me, however, there were 2 threads. One was silver, representing a partnership of interests. The other was pale gold, its end landing on my side. This meant I was his benefactor. Boss Jiang, rest assured. I smiled. Since I dare bring him here, I can keep him under control. As long as you have it in mind, sir. Jiang Lian did not ask further and led us to a pavilion. Zhao Wenyin put down the statue of the Fifth Path Lord and immediately withdrew into the distance. This much tact, at least, he did not lack. Jiang Lian looked at me, his expression clearly somewhat tense. Mr. Su, 7 days have arrived. Please take another look for me. Can I get through today safely or not? Don't rush. I took out 3 sticks of incense, lit them, and inserted them before the statue. First, invite the Fifth Path Lord. Jiang Lian immediately shut his mouth. Smoke rose. I lifted my eyes to look at him. Eyes of King Yin open. Several lines of blood-colored information instantly appeared. Name, Jiang Lian. Fortune, 0 points. Remaining lifespan, 16 hours. Time of death, tonight at 12 o'clock. Cause of death, Secretary Rao Ting, under the orders of Jiang Lian's half-sister Jiang Qin, comes to his door under the pretext of confessing the conspiracy. Rao Ting will place a powerful sleeping drug in his water. After Jiang Lian loses consciousness, people sent by Jiang Qin will take him to a designated location and stage it as a bridge fall accident. I stared at those lines, my eyes darkening. As expected, the original car accident was gone, but a new death calamity had arrived. Hiding was useless. As long as the person behind the scenes remained, the calamity would continue to change. Seeing that my expression was wrong, Jiang Lian immediately pressed. Mr. Su, how is it? I raised my hand and extinguished the incense, then directly asked him. Who is Rao Ting? Jiang Lian's face changed slightly. My secretary. How long has she been with you? 5 years. Do you trust her? Of course. Jiang Lian frowned. She knows basically all of the company's important affairs. And what about Jiang Qin? The moment he heard this name, he suddenly stood up. My sister. What about her? I lifted my head and looked at him, saying each word clearly. Tonight at midnight, you will die. The person who drugs you is Rao Ting. The person who truly wants your life is Jiang Qin. What surprised me was that after this enhancement, the information given by the eyes of King Yin was even more precise. It did not only tell me who would be in trouble. Even the time, location, and process were all written clearly. Was this still fortune-telling? With only a mouth that could speak the dead back to life missing, I was not much different from a true oracle whose words never failed. Of course, I could not show this surprise. At least not in front of Jiang Lian. I stabilized my expression and told him everything I had just seen. After listening, Jiang Lian's face turned completely cold. Mr. Su, what you mean is, as long as Jiang Qin remains, this calamity will not stop. I looked at him. Fate can change, and so can human hearts. Perhaps in the future, Jiang Qin will abandon that thought. At this point, I raised my hand and pointed at the statue of the Fifth Path Lord on the table. But the Fifth Path Lord governs life and death, oversees reincarnation, and observes good and evil. Since the Venerable One has given a warning, it cannot be without reason. Boss Jiang, you had better think clearly. Jiang Lian did not speak. His fingers tapped the tabletop lightly, each tap heavier than the last. Jiang Qin was his half-sister. The two had already torn off all pretense, so whether she lived or died did not matter. What truly pained him was Rao Ting. Before meeting me, Rao Ting had always been his trusted aide. The feeling of being stabbed in the back by the person one trusted most hurt more than facing an enemy. A moment later, he lifted his head. Mr. Su, you said just now that Rao Ting will approach me tonight under the excuse of expressing gratitude, then drug my cup? Yes. Are you certain? Certain. I answered very simply. I had not directly intervened in Rao Ting's fate, so the original trajectory would not easily change. Therefore, tonight, she would definitely come. Seeing how certain I was, Jiang Lian's eyes changed. That was not only belief. Even more, it was fear. Because what I was showing now was no longer something like reading faces or interpreting birth charts, but truly seeing the future. He could not help glancing at the statue of the Fifth Path Lord before lowering his voice. Mr. Su, I have an unreasonable request. Speak. I would like to ask you to come with me to meet someone. I raised an eyebrow. Your father? A trace of surprise flashed through Jiang Lian's eyes. That's right. He paused, and his tone also sank somewhat. The situation inside is very complicated. It's inconvenient for me to explain in detail now. Once we arrive, Mr. Su will naturally understand. All right, I'll go with you. I agreed very readily. After all, the bank card containing 500,000 was still in my possession. Take a person's money, resolve their disaster. Moreover, the Zhang family was one of Linchuan's top wealthy families. For Zhang Guobin to have climbed from nothing to his current position, he could not possibly be completely clean. Whether he was hiding fortune or carrying karma, I wanted to see it with my own eyes. What about that divine statue? Jiang Lian looked toward the statue of the Fifth Path Lord, his expression somewhat hesitant. Perhaps he still did not fully believe in ghosts and gods. But after dealing with me so many times, he no longer dared show even the slightest contempt. I smiled. Leave it here for now. Let Zhao Wenyan guard it. Mr. Su, that is not what I meant. I understand. I patted the table before the statue. The Fifth Path Lord has vast divine powers, and his divine will is everywhere. As long as the incense remains unbroken, the magic power will naturally not be broken either. Even if the person is not here, he can still deliver his decree. Jiang Lian immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He cupped his hands slightly toward the statue, then turned to look at Zhao Wenyan. Then I'll have to trouble Brother Zhao. No trouble. Zhao Wenyan immediately straightened his back. To be able to do things for great immortal Su is my honor. Jiang Lian laughed once, took out a bank card from his person, and placed it on the table. There is 100,000 in here. Consider it a small token of my sincerity. I'll have to trouble Brother Zhao to put in more effort. Zhao Wenyan's entire body instantly stiffened. 100,000. Just guarding a statue could earn 100,000. His eyes were almost glued to the bank card, and his breathing had clearly become heavier. I nearly thought he would pounce on it in the next second, but he gritted his teeth and actually forced his hand back. Boss Jiang, I can't take this money. He spoke with righteous conviction, but his face was in so much pain it was almost twitching. I came out following great immortal Su to handle matters. This is what I should be doing. If I take your money, what kind of person would that make me? Jiang Lian was clearly stunned for a moment. Afterward, the way he looked at Zhao Wenyan gained a bit of appreciation. Good. Brother Zhao is broad-minded. It seems I was the one being distant. He took the bank card back and patted Zhao Wenyan on the shoulder. Then after the matter is over, I will properly thank you. It's what I should do, what I should do. The corner of Zhao Wenyan's mouth twitched, and his smile looked uglier than crying. With one glance, I could tell his heart was already bleeding. But the words had been spoken. It was too late to go back on them now. Jiang Lian called over the housekeeper and instructed him to prepare some food and drinks. Only then did he take me into the car and leave. Later, Zhao Wenyan told me that the moment we left, he collapsed into the chair. He was so regretful he beat his chest and stomped his feet, even raising his hand to slap himself twice. While slapping himself, he complained in the most pained tone that he had spoken too much. After all, that was 100,000. Not 10 yuan, and not 100. Fortunately, the housekeeper soon brought people over with a table full of fruit and pastries. Each item was frighteningly exquisite. When had Zhao Wenyin ever seen such a scene? He did not even dare take big bites, only secretly taking one large red and green lychee. In the end, after one bite, he nearly cried on the spot. According to his later original words, at that moment, he became even more determined to follow me. He said that as long as he followed me closely, sooner or later, he too could mingle in the upper class and make all those who once looked down on him shut their mouths. Of course, that was later. At this moment, I was sitting in Jiang Lian's car, heading toward Jinshan Villa District. Jinshan was located in the center of Linchuan City. As soon as the car drove in, I saw independent villas passing by outside the window one after another. Private gardens, outdoor swimming pools, rows of expensive ornamental trees. Luxury cars rarely seen outside could be found everywhere here. I could not help asking, "The houses here aren't cheap, are they?" Jiang Lian smiled. "Right now, around 80 to 90,000 per square meter." I glanced at the courtyard beside us. In other words, any random bathroom here might be worth nearly 1 million. An ordinary person could work hard for half a lifetime and still might not be able to afford even one bathroom here. Jiang Lian leaned against the seat, his tone casual. "If Mr. Su likes it, after the matter is over, I'll give you one." I turned to look at him. A villa worth tens of millions came out of his mouth as casually as giving away a box of fruit. To say I was not moved would be a lie. Villas, luxury cars, money. Who would not like them? But I still shook my head. Forget it. Why? Some things are easy to take, but hard to repay. I smiled slightly. In the future, introducing a few more clients to me would be more practical than giving me a villa. Jiang Lian was stunned for an instant, then burst into laughter. "Good. Then we'll do as Mr. Su says." As we spoke, the car stopped in front of a luxurious villa. The smart system scanned the license plate, and the gate automatically opened. Two black-clad bodyguards stood behind the gate and spoke in unison. "Mr. Jiang." Jiang Lian only nodded once. The car continued driving into the courtyard. After we got out, he led me toward the main building while saying, "This building is the main residence. The two buildings on the left and right are where relatives of the Jiang family live. Jiang Group is called a group, but in reality, it is more like a family enterprise. My father and I hold the most shares, while the other relatives also hold some." I heard the implication in his words. "They are restless?" "More than restless," Jiang Lian sneered. "In these past few years, their appetites have grown bigger and bigger. One by one, they all want to reach into the group, constantly testing my bottom line. And yet my father values family ties, always thinking that since we are all one family, there is no need to go too far." At this point, his footsteps suddenly paused. "But he does not understand. The more you indulge them, the more they feel you are easy to bully. In the end, what you raise are not relatives. They are a pack of jackals waiting to eat meat." I glanced at him. "So, you're preparing to make a move?" "Yes," Jiang Lian answered without the slightest hesitation. "Governing a family is the same as treating an illness. If a tumor grows into the flesh, it must be cut out. If medicine is not enough, then use a knife. As long as the Jiang family can be preserved, what is a little bloodshed?" At this moment, the aura around him changed completely. To be able to remain firmly seated as the person in power at Jiang Group, while facing the restraint of his biological father and the siege of family relatives, Jiang Lian was naturally no kind-hearted believer. It was not that he had no means. It was only that in the past, he had still kept family affection in mind and did not wish to tear all pretense apart completely. But now, Jiang Qin had already stepped on his fatal point. Rao Ting's betrayal had even more thoroughly killed the last softness in his heart. Today's meeting was the final chance he was giving Jiang Guobin. Either father and son would join hands to dig out all the tumors in the Jiang family, or they would completely fall out. Just as we were about to walk up the steps, a young man wearing a floral shirt and sunglasses swaggered out from inside. He walked with his toes turned outward, looking as if he placed no one in his eyes. But the moment he saw Jiang Lian, he instantly stood straight. "Co-cousin." He hurriedly took off his sunglasses. Jiang Lian swept him a cold glance. "Useless thing. Besides eating, drinking, and playing all day, what else can you do? Get out." The young man's face immediately flushed red. Clearly, he had not expected Jiang Lian to give him no face at all in front of an outsider like me. But he did not dare retort. Among the younger generation of the entire Jiang family, no one dared openly provoke Jiang Lian. The young man lowered his head and gritted his teeth as he walked past us. I glanced at him. The next second, lines of information appeared directly before my eyes. Name, Jiang Jin. Remaining lifespan, 2 days. Cause of death. After joining forces with his cousin Jiang Qin and using Rao Ting to kill Jiang Lian, he plans to go to Jiang Group to divide up benefits. However, Jiang Qin sends her trusted subordinate Li Maoyong to silence him by staging a car accident. My footsteps halted. 2 days later, killing the donkey after it finished grinding the mill. This was truly a good show. When Jiang Jin reached the entrance, he suddenly turned back. The resentment in his eyes was almost unconcealed. The instant our gazes met, he clearly panicked. Although I did not hear clearly what he said, judging by that gritted teeth expression, he was obviously speaking viciously. I turned around directly and fixed my gaze on him. Jiang Jin's body trembled, and he immediately turned his head and hurried away. Mr. Su, what is it? Jiang Lian also stopped. I withdrew my gaze. This good cousin of yours has already gotten mixed up with Jiang Qin. What? Jiang Lian's fists suddenly clenched. His knuckles turned white. Blue veins bulged on his forehead. In order to preserve the Jiang family, he had nearly exhausted all his effort. Yet these people of the Jiang family, one after another, were all preparing to stab him from behind. Are you certain? You can choose not to believe me. I believe you. Jiang Lian answered very quickly. He did not even ask how I could tell. He only looked back in the direction Jiang Jin had left, and the killing intent in his eyes grew colder and colder. Very good. 1 Jiang Qin, 1 Rao Ting, and now 1 Jiang Jin. He exhaled and forcibly suppressed his anger. I will deal with these parasites one by one. Let's go see your father first. Go. We entered the main building. The hall was wide. The walls were covered with calligraphy, paintings, awards, and many yellowing black and white photographs. At the very center sat a grandmaster chair. An old man with a head full of white hair sat upon it, both eyes slightly closed, his body rocking lightly with the chair. He was the true founder of the Jiang family, Jiang Guobin, 67 years old, yet he looked far older than his actual age. The moment I looked at him, the eyes of King Yin activated automatically. Between Jiang Lian and Jiang Guobin, aside from the crimson thread representing blood relation, there were also 2 threads of different colors. One was dark green, representing karmic debt and repayment. One was deep brown, representing entangled grudges, blood kinship, debt, resentment. 3 threads were tightly wrapped together. The relationship between this father and son was even more complicated than I had imagined. Immediately after, information appeared above Jiang Guobin's head. Name, Jiang Guobin. Karma, 800 points. Remaining lifespan, 3 days. Cause of death. At 8 o'clock in the evening, after learning that his son and nephew have died one after another, he realizes something is wrong and calls his daughter Jiang Qin to question her. After being mocked by Jiang Qin, he vomits blood on the spot and is hospitalized. When paying the fees, he learns that the Jiang family assets have already been secretly transferred away by Jiang Qin. In fury and shock, his heart is attacked, and a generation's business overlord comes to his end. I stared at that number, and my breathing stopped for an instant. 800 points of karma. 10 points of karma could drop 1 judge's brush fragment. 800 points meant 80 fragments. Add the 7 fragments obtained from Gao Qiqiang before, and I was only 1 step away from synthesizing the judge's brush. Was this even a person? This was clearly a treasure vault placed before me. I had originally thought that those businessmen who went into commerce early and built themselves from nothing would inevitably have some unclean things on their hands. But 800 points of karma still far exceeded my expectations. There must be many shameful things hidden behind Jiang Guobin. There might even be human lives on his back. If I could participate in judging him and transform all 800 points of karma, my strength would inevitably rise another level. The question was, how should I intervene? According to the experience with Gao Qiqiang, as long as I directly intervened and caused the target to die early or die according to the time predicted by the eyes of King Yin, it might be determined that I had participated in the judgment. In other words, Jiang Guobin's life could not be saved lightly. At least, not before I understood his sins clearly. While I was thinking, Jiang Lian had already walked over. Dad, the Grandmaster chair stopped rocking. Jiang Guobin slowly opened his eyes. Although those eyes were cloudy, they still carried the pressure of someone long used to occupying a high position. He looked at Jiang Lian. There was no concern, no affection, only vigilance. At that moment, I immediately understood the problem between this father and son. Jiang Guobin was like an aging lion. He was used to holding power, used to everyone obeying him. And Jiang Lian had already grown into a true prime-aged lion. Even if Jiang Lian had never openly seized power, in Jiang Guobin's eyes, this son remained the greatest threat. Sure enough, the moment Jiang Guobin spoke, his tone was terrifyingly cold. No rules. Casually bringing an outsider into the main residence. Do you still have any regard for me as your father? Jiang Lian stood where he was. He did not explain, nor did he retreat. Dad, this is Mr. Su, an expert I specially invited. He can save the Jiang family. Expert. Jiang Guobin looked at me and suddenly sneered. Him, a brat whose hair has barely dried, dares call himself an expert? He raised his hand, pointing at Jiang Lian, his tone growing heavier. I originally thought handing Jiang Group to you was the most correct decision of my life. Now it seems I was mistaken. Not only are you incapable, your vision is as shallow as your mother's. The moment these words fell, Jiang Lian's expression changed. Killing intent instantly filled the entire hall. He could endure Jiang Guobin insulting him, but he could not endure the other party insulting his mother. Say that again. Jiang Guobin narrowed his eyes. What? You want to attack me? I said, say it again. Jiang Lian suddenly roared. The bodyguards in the hall all looked over at the same time, but no one dared approach. Jiang Guobin's face was gloomy, rebellious. Do you really think that after managing the group for a few years, this family belongs to you? He suddenly slapped the armrest. I have already decided on the new candidate to head the group. Tomorrow morning, go to the company and complete the handover. From now on, just be a proper rich second generation. Don't meddle in the group's affairs anymore. The air instantly froze. Jiang Lian stared at his father. After several seconds, he suddenly laughed. A very cold laugh. You finally said it. You've wanted to drive me away for a long time, haven't you? It's not because I lack ability. Precisely because my ability is too strong, strong enough to have already made you afraid. Jiang Guobin's expression changed slightly. Jiang Lian approached step by step. When my mother married you back then, you were so poor you couldn't even afford a bicycle. She was the one who accompanied you through hardship. It was my maternal grandfather who provided money and connections, supporting you step by step. Without them, would you, Jiang Guobin, have today? Shut up. Jiang Guobin suddenly shouted angrily. But Jiang Lian did not stop at all. He had endured for too many years. Today, he had come to tear off all pretense. After you became successful, the first thing you did was not repay kindness. It was suppress my mother's family. You were afraid others would know you rose by relying on your father-in-law, afraid others would say you depended on a woman, so you desperately tried to erase that part of the past. Not long after my mother died, you were already impatient to find the woman outside. Now, you still want to bring that illegitimate daughter back and let her step on everything my mother left behind to rise. Jiang Guobin suddenly stood up. Shut your mouth. Why should I shut up? Jiang Lian walked forward to meet him. The father and son were only a few steps apart. Neither retreated. These years, I have given you enough face. But what about you? Did you think that just because my mother died, the things she left behind could be trampled by you however you wanted? She saw through you long ago. That's why before she died, she left all 40% of the shares in her hands to me. Jiang Lian raised his hand and pointed at the ground beneath his feet. As long as I still stand here for one day, you can forget about bringing Jiang Qin into the Jiang family. And you can forget about letting her touch Jiang Group. Jiang Guobin's breathing became faster and faster. She is also your younger sister. I don't have a sister like that. She has Jiang family blood flowing in her. So what? Jiang Lian interrupted coldly. A man who betrayed his wife, and a woman who threw herself at him for money. Do you still expect the daughter they raised to value affection? Those words were like a slap that landed viciously across Jiang Guobin's face. His body swayed. Then he gripped the armrest of the Grandmaster chair tightly, and his mouth burst out with a string of furious reprimands. He wanted to use his identity as a father to suppress Jiang Lian. But this time, it was useless. Jiang Lian did not even avoid his gaze. After tonight, I will give you two choices. First, retire peacefully. As long as the requests are not excessive, I will satisfy them. You wronged my mother, but you did raise me. I will not evade the responsibilities I should fulfill. Second, his voice suddenly turned cold. You take the woman outside in Jiangqin and leave the Jiang family together. From now on, Jiang Group will have nothing to do with any of you. Jiang Guobin trembled with anger. You dare drive me away? I built this family. Without me, where would the Jiang family come from? But without my mother and my maternal grandfather, you wouldn't even have the qualification to build anything. Jiang Lian's sentence pushed him back directly. Afterward, he turned his head to look at me. Our gazes met in midair. He was asking me, tonight, could he win? I looked at the 3 days of lifespan above Jiang Guobin's head, and then thought of Rao Ting, who was about to make a move, and slowly nodded. He could. Of course he could. Only, after tonight, how many people in the Jiang family would die? I could not say. Receiving my response, Jiang Lian had no more concerns. He turned back, looked at his father, and spoke each word clearly. Dad, this is the last time I will call you that. Before tonight, you still have a choice. After tonight, whoever dares stand in my way, I will make them get out, including you. I had just followed Jiang Lian to the doorway when a furious roar exploded from behind us. Unfilial son, don't think I don't know what you're planning. Jiang Lian's footsteps paused. Jiang Guobin stared fixedly at his back, his face ashen with anger. You've always resented your sister, but have you ever thought about this? She lived overseas alone with her mother since she was young. How much hardship did she suffer? Everything you have now is something she couldn't obtain no matter how much she begged. I only want to compensate her as a father. Is that wrong? You're the elder brother. What's wrong with yielding to her? Jiang Lian did not turn back, but Jiang Guobin grew more and more agitated as he spoke. As long as you still have a bit of conscience, take the initiative to step down as chairman of the group. If you're willing to give up your position, I'll still be your father. Your sister also won't ignore you, including. Enough. Jiang Lian finally spoke. His voice was not loud, but it was frighteningly cold. Save those words and tell them to her. After saying that, he pulled open the door and strode away. I followed behind him and did not advise him, because there was no longer any need. The one who truly pushed the Jiang family into the fire pit had never been only Jiang Qin. There was also Jiang Guobin. His favoritism, his self-righteousness, and that belated fatherly love of his were precisely what gave Jiang Qin the confidence to act without restraint. After getting into the car, Jiang Lian said nothing for a long time, but his chest rose and fell violently, and veins bulged on the back of his hands. I looked at him and directly pierced the final layer of paper over the window. Boss Jiang, you did nothing wrong. He raised his eyes to look at me. I continued, the cause and effect between your father and Jiang Qin is already too deeply entangled. According to the original development, tonight, you would die at Rao Ting's hands. Your cousin would not escape either. In the end, the entire Jiang group would fall into Jiang Qin's hands. The car instantly became silent. Jiang Lian clenched his fists tightly. After a few seconds, he asked in a hoarse voice, no matter what I say now, the old man won't believe me, right? Right. Then I won't say anything. He leaned back into the seat, his gaze turning cold little by little. We'll see the truth on the table. These years, it's not as if I made no preparations at all. After saying that, he looked through the rearview mirror at the 3 villas behind him. From now on, I will never come back to this place again. Just then, his phone lit up. Rao Ting had sent a message. Mr. Jiang, I noticed your complexion hasn't been very good recently. I brought an old hen from my hometown. May I stew it and bring it over for you tonight? Jiang Lian stared at the screen and suddenly smiled. That smile was very bitter. You were right again. After a moment of silence, he replied with only one word. Then he looked toward the driver's seat. Brotherly. The driver immediately responded. Mr. Jiang, please give your instructions. Have our people prepare all the materials. Wait for my call tonight. Understood. These few words were enough. Jiang Lian was not weak. He simply had been unwilling to believe his own family would truly kill him. Now, the last bit of luck was gone. What remained was only counterattack. After returning to the private manor, Jiang Lian sat in the living room drinking tea. I did not stay. The play had already begun, and I had other things to do. I took Zhao Wenyin and left the manor, heading straight to a late-night food stall near Linchuan Bridge. Sit. I pulled out a chair. Zhao Wenyin hurriedly set down the fifth path lord wrapped in red cloth, then wiped the table for me. Great Immortal, please sit. I glanced at him. Don't call me Great Immortal from now on. He froze. Then what should I call you? Xiaodian is fine. How could that be all right? Suit yourself. His eyes rolled, and he immediately smiled. Brother Xiaodian. I ignored him and raised my hand to order a table full of grilled skewers. Zhao Wenyin nimbly opened 2 bottles of beer. Brother Xiaodian, are we not going back tonight? No rush. I tilted my head back and took a mouthful of beer. The cold liquid slid down my throat, and my mind instead became clearer. Zhao Wenyin lowered his voice. What are we waiting for? I glanced at the time. 11:50. Waiting for someone to kill Jiang Lian. Zhao Wenyin's hand trembled, and the beer almost spilled. What? Don't be nervous. I set down the cup. He won't die. At the same time, Rao Ting had already arrived at the manor gate. Only later did I learn that she had stood outside for a long time. She held the food container in her arms, her face deathly pale, wanting to run several times. But the fear Jiang Qin had left her with had long since crushed her. In the end, she still stood in front of the electronic access control. Beep. Facial recognition passed. The lights inside the manor lit up one by one. Rao Ting took a deep breath, forced out the gentle and obedient appearance she usually wore, and stepped through the light toward the main building. A few minutes later, she knocked on the door. Mr. Jiang, are you asleep? No. Come in. Rao Ting pushed the door open and entered, placing the food container on the coffee table. It's so late, and I still made you make this trip. Thank you for the trouble. No trouble. She lowered her head and opened the food container. I've always remembered that Mr. Jiang was willing to give me an opportunity back then. Without you, I might still be struggling in some small company right now. The fragrance of chicken soup quickly spread. Rao Ting served a bowl and brought it before Jiang Lian. Drink it while it's hot. Jiang Lian accepted the bowl and smiled slightly. All right. Rao Ting stared at him. She was waiting for him to drink it. But Jiang Lian suddenly raised his head. By the way, there's a document on the table in my bedroom. Help me bring it down. Rao Ting's heart tightened. Now. I need it tomorrow morning. All right. She turned and went upstairs. As soon as the sound of her footsteps disappeared, Jiang Lian immediately poured the chicken soup back into the food container, then used his finger to dab a little soup at the corner of his lips. Afterward, he leaned back into the sofa and closed his eyes. Then let's see just how ruthless you all are. When Rao Ting returned with the document, the first thing she saw was the empty bowl. Jiang Lian leaned against the sofa as if he had fallen asleep. She carefully approached. Mr. Jiang. No response. She reached out and pushed his shoulder. Jiang Lian mumbled. Maybe I've been too tired recently. As soon as the words fell, his breathing became heavy. Mr. Jiang. Mr. Jiang. After calling several times in a row, Jiang Lian still showed no reaction. The gentleness on Rao Ting's face vanished instantly. She took out her phone and quickly sent the message she had prepared long ago. It's done. Then she rushed into the monitoring room, shut off all surveillance, and pulled out the storage card. In a small grove a few hundred meters away, a car's lights turned on. After reading the message, Jiang Qin sneered. So easy. She looked toward the 2 men in the back seat. You 2 go over. Get him onto the bridge. Move quickly. Understood. The 2 men pushed open the doors, got out, and headed straight for the manor. Rao Ting had just returned to the entrance of the main building when she ran into them. He's inside. The drug has already taken effect. He won't wake up for a while. Hurry up. One of the men looked her up and down, his smile disgusting. What's the rush? The boss also said that after the job is done, you're to come relax with us. Rao Ting's expression changed abruptly. What do you mean? Isn't the meaning clear enough? The man stepped closer and lowered his voice in threat. We have evidence of all the things you've done. If you dare disobey, we'll expose everything. The other man impatiently stopped him. Why waste words with her? Handle the main business first. The two of them laughed arrogantly and walked past Rao Ting. Rao Ting stood frozen in place. Only when one of them deliberately reached out to humiliate her did she scream and flee toward the gate in a panic. The laughter behind her chased after her relentlessly. Run! Wait for our call. If you dare not come, think about the consequences yourself. Rao Ting rushed out of the manor, tears instantly pouring out. She took out her phone and pressed the emergency number. But when she saw the call button, she stopped again. If she reported it, Jiang Qin would not let her go. If she did not report it, her entire life would be completely ruined. She finally understood that Jiang Qin had never treated her as one of her own. She was only a tool, used and then discarded. But now, it was already too late to regret it. The two burly men entered the living room and saw Zhang Lian lying on the sofa at a glance. One of them looked around, his face twisting with jealousy. He sure knows how to enjoy himself. As he spoke, he rushed forward and slapped Zhang Lian across the face. Slap. The sound was especially crisp. Zhang Lian's face immediately turned red. But he did not move. The other man shoved his companion away. Fat dog, stop causing trouble. Hurry up and take him away. If anything goes wrong, the boss can make you die even worse than him. At the mention of Jiang Qin, Fat Dog immediately behaved. They had done quite a bit of dirty work with Jiang Qin overseas. Compared to the law, they feared that woman more. Because not only was Jiang Qin ruthless, she was also willing to spend money. This time, the price she offered was 100 million each. The two stopped wasting words. One in front and one behind. They lifted Zhang Lian and threw him into a white van parked in the grove. The vehicle door closed. Fat Dog stepped on the gas and headed straight for Linchuan Bridge. Zhang Lian lay in the back seat with his eyes closed the entire time. That slap had been heavy, but he endured it, because this was his own choice. He wanted to enter the game as bait. He wanted to drag Jiang Qin and the people behind her out all at once. But this play was also extremely dangerous. As long as Jiang Qin suddenly changed her plan, or these two desperados suddenly acted directly, Zhang Lian could truly die inside the car. Still, he gambled. What he gambled on was not luck. It was me. In front of the late-night food stall, I finished the last mouthful of beer. Zhao Wenyin was still constantly checking the time. Brother Xiaodian, exactly how long are we waiting? I set down the glass. Now. I took out my phone and called the Law Enforcement Bureau. Hello, I want to report a crime. Someone is preparing to murder Jiang Lian, chairman of Jiang Group, at Linchuan Bridge. The other side of the phone was silent for an instant. Then the voice abruptly became serious. Are you certain? A white van is currently heading toward Linchuan Bridge. There are two suspects in the vehicle, acting under Jiang Qin's orders. There is also a boat waiting below the bridge. If you're a few minutes later, you'll only be able to fish a body out of the river. I hung up the phone. In less than a minute, sirens sounded in the distance. Zhao Wenyin suddenly stood up. They really came? Sit down. I stared in the direction of Linchuan Bridge. This has only just begun. Several kilometers away, 3 vehicles from the district law enforcement station had already rushed out of the gate. The person in charge of the team was so anxious his forehead was covered in sweat. Quick, full sirens. Go straight through every intersection. If that report is true, something huge is going to happen tonight. Jiang Lian was no ordinary person. If he were killed, Jiang Group would inevitably be shaken. What was involved was not merely assets worth tens of billions. There were also countless employees, upstream and downstream companies, and the entire Linchuan business world. No one could bear that responsibility. At the same time, Jiang Qin had already driven that pink sports car to the other end of the bridge. She lowered the window, letting the night wind stir her long hair. On her phone screen, there were only 3 words from Rao Ting. It's done. The corner of Jiang Qin's lips lifted. I thought you would be so difficult to deal with. And this is all. In the distance, a white van drove onto the bridge. The smile in her eyes grew stronger and stronger. As long as Jiang Lian died, Jiang Guobin would completely lose his support. At that time, she would remove the other heirs as well, and the entire Jiang Group would become something in her pocket. Inside the van, Fat Dog complained as he drove. Wouldn't it have been fine to just kill him at the manor? Why drag him to the bridge? What a hassle. His companion sneered. What the boss wants isn't just for him to die. She wants him to die in despair. Fat Dog shivered. In any case, I'm never offending the boss in the future. Cut the crap. We're almost there. His companion patted the bag containing the tools. Throw him in. Then we head straight to the dock. The boat is already prepared. Once we're past the border, 100 million each. Fat Dog immediately became excited. And Rao Ting. If that woman dares not come, I'll teach her what regret means. The two laughed loudly. They did not notice that the man in the back seat, who should have been completely unconscious, had already quietly clenched his right hand. Even less did they notice that in the distant darkness, streaks of red and blue light were rapidly closing in. I stood beside the late-night food stall, looking toward the bridge. Zhao Wenyan had also heard the sirens. He swallowed. Brother Shouty on what now? I picked up the fifth path Lord from the table. What now? Of course, we close the net. Doesn't Jiang Qin want her brother to die in despair? I walked toward the bridge, my voice also turning cold. Tonight, I'll let her personally taste it. What true despair means. The van stopped in the middle of the bridge. I sat inside a black sedan in the distance, set up the camera, and locked the lens tightly onto the van door. The river surface was only 5 meters below the bridge. A person who could swim might not necessarily die after jumping down. But Zhang Lian was still unconscious. Once he entered the water, he would undoubtedly die. The van door opened. Fat Dog and his companion jumped out of the vehicle. One on the left and one on the right. They dragged Zhang Lian out. This river is wide enough and deep enough. Fat Dog grinned, his face full of greed. Throw him in, and they may not fish him up for 3 to 5 days. By the time they find the body, we'll already have run overseas. Enough crap. Hurry up. The two dragged Zhang Lian to the guardrail. The companion lit a cigarette, stuffed it into Zhang Lian's mouth, and deliberately put his arm around Zhang Lian's shoulder. From far away, it looked like 3 middle-aged men who had drunk too much were standing by the bridge, smoking and pouring out their sorrows. But the camera in my hands had already recorded their faces, actions, and license plate completely. I glanced at the time. What should arrive was about to arrive. In the next second, red and blue lights lit up among the traffic across the bridge. Fat Dog abruptly turned his head. Law enforcement vehicle? His companion also panicked. How did they get here so quickly? The two looked at each other. Run or continue. They hesitated for only 2 seconds before viciousness appeared on the companion's face. They're still that far away. They can't see clearly. Throw him in and head to the dock immediately. As long as we get out of the country, can they still chase us overseas? Fat Dog cursed under his breath several times, obviously scolding the employer behind the scenes for causing trouble. Immediately after, the two grabbed Zhang Lian at the same time. 1, 2. Throw. Zhang Lian flipped over the guardrail and fell straight into the river. Splash. Water exploded upward. Several passing cars immediately slowed down. The drivers were all stunned. But no one stopped. Someone even stuck his head out the window and shouted irritably, "Which platform is filming another garbage script? Have you gone crazy trying to get famous?" Hearing this, Fat Dog instead breathed a sigh of relief. He thought everyone had treated the scene just now as some livestream stunt. But he did not know. I had recorded the entire process, and the arriving law enforcement officers had also personally seen them throw someone. Move. A furious roar came from the walkie-talkie. Team 1. Team 2, stop that van. Notify fire rescue and the rescue team. Get into the river immediately. Fat Dog's expression changed abruptly. Something's wrong. They're here for us. The two rushed back into the vehicle. Before the door had fully closed, Fat Dog slammed the accelerator to the floor. The van roared forward. Ahead, 2 law enforcement vehicles directly turned sideways, blocking the bridge. Sit tight. Fat Dog jerked the wheel. The tires scraped against the road, letting out an ear-piercing screech. The van fishtailed in place, knocked through the barrier posts, turned around, and fled wildly. 2 law enforcement vehicles immediately chased after it, one in front, one behind. Biting tightly, I put down the camera and looked toward the water. Zhang Lian was already gone. The head of the law enforcement team rushed to the guardrail, his face extremely ugly. Where is he? I can't see him. Expand the search area. Seal off the riverbank and start rescue immediately. A few minutes later, fire trucks arrived. The professional rescue team followed closely behind. Beams of strong light shone across the river surface. Armed personnel rapidly set up a blockade along the Linchuan River. At the same time, news that the head of Jiang Group had been murdered exploded onto the internet. Self-media arrived. Reporters arrived. More and more onlookers gathered. But I did not remain at the scene. What I should do had already been done. Next, it depended on whether Jiang Lian's life was hard enough. At the same time, Jiang Qin also saw the news. Later, the law enforcement department recovered part of her call records from that night. She sat in the car and slapped the steering wheel, completely losing control of her emotions. Two useless wastes. Such a simple matter. And they could still make it turn out like this. She knew very clearly that the matter could no longer be suppressed. Once Fat Dog and the other man were caught, sooner or later, they would give her up. But she still held on to her final bit of luck. Jiang Lian had already fallen into the water. Nighttime search and rescue was extremely difficult. As long as Jiang Lian died, she could smoothly take Jiang Group. As for the troubles afterward, she believed Jiang Guobin would block them for her. As long as he dies, there is still a chance for everything. She put away her phone and drove off. Unfortunately, she had underestimated this storm. All departments in Linchuan City acted overnight. Even Governor Lin, who had been handling matters outside the province, rushed back to the scene in the shortest possible time. At 5 o'clock in the morning, the search and rescue still had no result. The riverbank was deathly silent. All the people in charge had their heads lowered. No one dared speak. They all understood that if something happened to Jiang Lian, it would not be only one person who fell. Jiang Group would inevitably tremble. Public opinion, employment, the economy, all of them would be swept in. Governor Lin was silent for a long time before finally speaking. Notify all departments. Prepare for the worst. Found him. A shout suddenly came from afar. A law enforcement officer rushed over, so excited his voice was trembling. He's been found. He's not dead. A fishing boat working at night rescued him. He has already been sent to the hospital. Everyone lifted their heads at the same time. Governor Lin's tightly furrowed brows finally relaxed. But in the next second, his gaze turned cold again. I'm going to the hospital. The rest of you handle the scene. He looked at the person in charge from the law enforcement department and gave the order, each word clear. Those two suspects have already been captured, correct? Yes. Then interrogate them. Within 24 hours, I want to know who instructed them. In this matter, whoever dares suppress it or drag it out will go down with them. Once the order was given, the entire law enforcement bureau stayed brightly lit all night. Fat Dog and his companion fled for less than half an hour before they were attacked from front and rear, the men and vehicle completely blocked at an elevated road exit. The two still wanted to resist. But just as they put on the posture of confronting law enforcement officers like they had overseas, they were subdued on the spot. When they were escorted back, the two were already bruised and swollen, no longer possessing any of their arrogance on the bridge. Inside the interrogation room, they were detained separately. The top two leaders of the Law Enforcement Bureau personally took the field. Who hired you? No one hired us. Still being stubborn? Fat Dog gritted his teeth. We have a grudge against Jiang Lian. The interrogator slapped a USB drive onto the table. A grudge. Then explain why Rao Ting drugged Jiang Lian in advance. Fat Dog's expression instantly changed. The interrogator stared at him. From the moment you entered the manor to the moment you threw Jiang Lian into the river, the entire process was recorded. You can keep holding on. Your accomplice can also keep holding on. Let's see which of you two is willing to shoulder all the crimes for the person behind the scenes. Sweat began to form on Fat Dog's forehead. At the same time, another team had already locked onto Rao Ting. After leaving the manor, she had not dared go back to sleep at all. The moment she arrived at her residence, she began packing her luggage. Clothes, documents, cash, and a ticket for a flight overseas. She only wanted to run. The farther, the better. On the way to the airport, a news push notification jumped onto her phone. Jiang Group helmsman falls into river late at night. Suspected deliberate murder. She opened the video. In the footage, Jiang Lian was lifted over the guardrail and directly thrown into the river. Rao Ting began trembling on the spot. It has nothing to do with me. Jiang Qin forced me. I only drugged him. I didn't tell them to kill anyone. But no one heard those words. She clutched the plane ticket tightly, placing all her hope on this flight. After arriving at the airport, She rushed through security. The gate let her through. Boarding was successful. Even after sitting inside the cabin, she kept looking toward the cabin door. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. No law enforcement officers appeared. She finally smiled. As long as the plane takes off, you won't be able to catch me. But when the scheduled takeoff time arrived, the plane still did not move. The passengers began complaining. Why haven't we taken off yet? Delayed again? Where are the staff? The smile on Rao Ting's face disappeared little by little. The cabin door suddenly opened. The boarding stairs were lowered again. 2 law enforcement officers quickly entered the cabin. Their gazes swept over the entire plane before finally landing on her. Rao Ting's face turned deathly pale. No, she had just stood up when the other party had already arrived in front of her. Rao Ting, I'm not. You have the wrong person. The law enforcement officer directly showed his credentials. Whether we have the wrong person or not, we'll talk after you come back with us. Click. Silver handcuffs locked around her hands. Her whole body went weak, and she nearly collapsed into her seat. A few minutes earlier, she had still thought she had escaped death. A few minutes later, she was escorted away in front of an entire plane of passengers. This was true face-slapping. Fast. Ruthless. Not even a second of fantasy was left for her. At 7 in the morning, I arrived at the hospital. Jiang Lian had already woken up. His face was still a little pale, but his breathing was steady and his mind clear. The instant I entered the ward, a familiar prompt appeared before my eyes. Detected that you have reversed the impending calamity of a person bearing fortune. Jiang Lian's fate has changed. This person's fortune was already drawn in advance and will not be obtained again. I raised my head and looked over. Jiang Lian's once precarious lifespan above his head had already refreshed to 41 years. The karmic blade that had been hanging above his head had also completely disappeared. It was done. I smiled and walked to the bedside. Congratulations, Boss Jiang. The calamity has already been broken. From today onward, the sky is high enough for you to fly, and the sea is wide enough for you to roam. Jiang Lian leaned against the head of the bed, and his eyes immediately brightened. So, does that mean Jiang Group can also pass through this crisis steadily? It can. I gave him a definite answer, but I did not say the second half. Jiang Group could pass through steadily. As for Jiang Guobin and Jiang Qin, that was not necessarily the case. In this round, Jiang Lian had used himself as bait. First, he secretly gathered evidence. Then he deliberately lured the snake out of its hole. Finally, he used public opinion to thoroughly blow the matter up, forcing the authorities to intervene. In this way, even if Jiang Guobin had extensive connections, it would be impossible for him to quietly suppress the matter. I suddenly found it somewhat difficult to tell. Was it that I had saved Jiang Lian? Or had he originally been waiting for this opportunity to uproot all the Jiang family's tumors in one breath? However, that did not matter. I only cared about one other question. There was still a terrifying amount of karma on Jiang Guobin's body. Fortune could be inherited. Karma was probably the same. The ancestors of the Jiang family had likely done no small number of evil deeds. As for Jiang Guobin himself, he could not possibly be clean either. If I wanted to obtain this karma, I had to continue digging downward. Only, would Jiang Lian be willing to personally send his own father in? I looked toward him. The threads of fate between us, once one gold and one silver, now had only a single silver thread left. This meant there was no longer any debt of gratitude between us. Only interest remained. Instead, I smiled. Relationships of interest were simpler. He wanted to clean up the Jiang family. I wanted the karma on Jiang Guobin. Each would take what he needed. Boss Jiang, the matter is more or less over. I rose to take my leave. My parents have just arrived in Linchuan and still haven't settled in properly. Rest well. I'll leave first. Wait. Jiang Lian stopped me. Mr. Su, do you truly not consider joining Jiang Group? I turned back to look at him. Arranging a position for me? Honorary consultant. He did not beat around the bush. You won't need to clock in, and you won't need to interfere with group affairs. You only need to point out a path for me at critical times. You may state whatever terms you want. He paused, then directly quoted a price. Annual salary, 10 million. These conditions were enough to drive the vast majority of people mad. But I shook my head. Sorry, I like money, but I don't like being tied to one boat. Jiang Lian stared at me for several seconds before finally sighing. Understood. But I will always keep this position reserved for you. Forget the position. I smiled. In the future, introducing me to a few more wealthy clients is more practical than anything else. Jiang Lian finally laughed aloud. It is their good fortune to be able to invite you to act. Rest assured, I'll arrange it. Then thank you. I turned and left the ward. The moment the door closed, I received a message. The sender had no name. There was only a video. In the footage, 5 law enforcement officers walked into the Jinshan villa. Jiang Guobin blocked them, emotional and agitated, pointing at them and loudly questioning them. Who allowed you to barge in? This is the Jiang family. The leading law enforcement officer directly produced an arrest warrant. Mr. Jiang, Jiang Qin is suspected of instructing others to murder Jiang Lian, chairman of Jiang Group. The evidence has already been submitted. We are arresting her according to the law. Jiang Guobin's face was ashen. Nonsense. This matter has nothing to do with Xiaoqin. Jiang Lian offended people outside. You're arresting the wrong person. Watching the video, I could not help laughing. The victim was his own biological son. Yet the first person he protected was the woman who wanted to kill his son. This favoritism was already beyond even bothering to pretend. The leading law enforcement officer was clearly also stunned by his attitude. Mr. Jiang, please step aside. I won't. Without evidence, no one can take Xiaoqin away. Evidence. A cold voice suddenly came from outside the door. Several tax department staff strode into the villa. Behind them followed a high-ranking Jiang Group executive with a deathly pale face. That person was the trusted A Jiang Guobin had placed in the group's core level. He was also the chess piece he had used to balance Jiang Lian. Now, this chess piece had clearly already changed sides. The instant he saw him, Jiang Guobin's aura weakened by a large margin. What are you doing here? That executive lowered his head, not daring to look at him at all. The tax department leader stepped forward and showed his credentials. Mr. Jiang, we received a real name report and have already obtained some key evidence. From now on, we are opening a case and investigating you and your related enterprises according to the law. Jiang Guobin froze where he stood. The other party did not give him time to react and directly read out a string of company names. Qinxian International Trade Company, Limited. Qingha Cross-Border E-Commerce Company, Limited. And 3 other related enterprises actually controlled by you. With every company name read aloud, Jiang Guobin's face grew paler. Because all these companies were shell companies and stepping stones he had built using Jiang Group's resources to pave the way for Jiang Qin. The tax department leader continued speaking. According to existing evidence, during your tenure as chairman of Jiang Group, you repeatedly and over a long period illegally occupied group assets, channels, client resources, and working capital. You also secretly transferred the group's overseas orders, cross-border e-commerce clients, and import-export channels to companies under your personal control. The relevant actions are suspected of enormous occupational embezzlement, tax evasion, and illegal related party transactions. The amount involved is huge, and the circumstances are severe. He put away the document, his gaze icy. Now, please cooperate with the investigation. Jiang Guobin's body swayed. Just now, he had still been blocking in front of Jiang Qin, wishing he could chase everyone out. At this moment, however, he looked as if someone had pulled out his bones. Who reported it? Who exactly was it? No one answered. Jiang Qin hid behind him, her fingers trembling nonstop. She had originally thought that as long as she hired a good lawyer, then spent money and pulled strings, she could drag things out like she had overseas. But now, the murder case, occupational embezzlement, tax evasion, and asset transfer had erupted at the same time. Every line had witnesses. Every line had physical evidence. All escape routes had been blocked at once. The law enforcement officer walked up to her. Jiang Qin, come with us. She suddenly stepped back. No, I didn't do anything. It was all Rao Ting. She was the one who drugged Jiang Lian. The moment these words came out, the entire living room instantly fell silent. The leading law enforcement officer stared at her. We haven't asked you about the drugging yet. Jiang Qin's face instantly lost all color. Watching the video, the corners of my mouth slowly lifted. Stupid. Too stupid. Before the law enforcement officers even pried open her mouth, she had already sent herself in. Immediately after, silver handcuffs came down. Click. Jiang Qin was subdued on the spot. On the other side, Jiang Guobin was also taken away by the tax personnel. The video ended there abruptly. I put away my phone and walked out of the hospital. Outside, the sky had already brightened. But I knew this storm had only just begun. Jiang Guobin's downfall was only the first step. That accumulated karma of many years on his body. I was determined to have it.